for October 10th at 6 p.m. And it's a conditional use application for a property at 106 Holiday Island Drive to be used as a short-term rental. And following that, we'll talk about amending the planning and zoning regulations, adding a new zone.
Okay. And just for the record, we have a new planning commission that took over at their last meeting, and it all went smooth, and I think we have a very good professional group on the planning commission now. Broadband, I really don't have anything to report. There's nothing much happened in the last month. No special committees at this time. Under reports, we have police and fire. I have the deputies report that I distributed, and it's on with the meeting documents. I guess of note is that if you look at a kind of a Pareto analysis, a breakdown of what our deputy Bilbo does in a month's time here, there were 162 total calls for service. Out of those, 42 of them were for medical, 23 were follow-up, or I don't know exactly what follow-up means, but it was, obviously not a new situation. 17 civil process, 9 suspicious activity, and 7 residential burglar alarm. Not necessarily residential burglary, but somebody's burglar alarm went off. That's 60% of the total calls for service. So, he stays pretty busy doing things. People are maybe a little disappointed that he doesn't spend more time, stopping speeders and stuff like that, but, he stays pretty busy just dealing with, things like, like medical and civil process and stuff like that. So that's why we need 2 deputies out here, because it's more than one person can really handle. I have a call in to Sheriff Platt to find out what the status is of our getting our 2nd deputy out here. He hasn't returned my call yet, so I'll try to get a status on that. I did not get a report yet from Chief Ates from the fire department last month, so I'll have to call him about that too. Any questions on the police or fire department? We have a report for code enforcement. Aaron has been pretty busy. There's several issues that have been resolved. I guess the thing that people are the most interested in is, when are we going to get to the point of actually serving citations to the more serious offenders, where just talking to them and issuing a warning notification hasn't gotten any results. We have issued 2 citations. The court dates are 2 months out right now, so the earliest court date we could get for those citations was November 3rd. But we are fully set up now and and capable of issuing citations and getting court dates and trying to enforce our ordinances. So moving forward, we should see more activity. And I think once the word gets out that we are issuing citations, people are going to be fined, maybe we'll get a little better response to our initial notifications. On building permit activity, there is a report. We did distribute a report. There isn't a lot of activity going on right now as far as new construction. There's a couple of houses that are still under construction from earlier permits. The primary activity right now is trying to get the old building permits closed out by getting the certificate of occupancy issued, which is required by our building code and by our zoning ordinances. And it's not an easy thing to do, you know, but when the contractor feels he's done, as long as he gets paid, he moves on to the next job. And as long as the people have paid the contractor, they move in. And there's really nothing we can do to stop them. And then we have a short list of things that were supposed to be resolved yet by the contractor, and nobody's interested in doing anything about it. So we're gonna have a discussion. Our building code and our zoning ordinance both provide for, again, fines and penalties for non-compliance. You hate to have to resort to that to get people to comply with the ordinances, but if that's what it takes, I guess that's what we'll start doing. We have issued some occupancy permits, so it's not a total washout, but we are having a little bit of an issue with that. Any questions on that?
Does David do the notices or the citations, or does Aaron do that?
Aaron would do it.
Well, he seems to be he's needing some guidance there.
We have to discuss, I need to give them some guidance as to what to do in these situations. You know, we're plowing new ground with all of this stuff, so we
can't be the first city that's encountered this though, so, I mean, surely there are buildings going up in Berryville that we could talk to Tim McKinney and how they handle it, or his building inspector.
The state building inspector says we got to issue citations and make people understand that there's, that we have teeth in our ordinances.
Well, there hasn't been any oversight for a long time.
Okay, moving on then. Under old business, we have no old business. Under new business, we have some ordinances and a resolution to discuss. Before we get into the first ordinance, I know that there's a big group of people here that are going to be interested in what we're going to do with these ordinances. I just want to make a couple of statements going in here. You know, the business licenses and the short-term rental, both of those proposed ordinances have had considerable public vetting already. We've had we've had workshops about both subjects, and we've had discussions in prior council meetings about those subjects. So the process we're going to go through here is I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance. If I get a motion and a second, we'll read the ordinance, and then I'll open it for discussion for the council members, and then I'll open it for discussion for the public. However, I want to keep the public comments reasonable. I don't want to shut people out of being able to make comments, but I also don't want to plow ground that we've already plowed also. And I would ask that if there are several people here that have the same opinion to voice about a particular subject, that once the first person has gotten up and expressed their opinion about it, unless you have something different to say, you know, in the sake of us getting through this meeting before 10 o'clock. Let's try not to have multiple people get up and just say the same thing. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-016, an ordinance establishing short-term rental conditions for approval of conditional use permits, fees, violations, fines, and other purposes for the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that we approve 2023-16.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I will second it. Then you want to read it?
Okay.
And this is 6 pages of ordinance, and, but I think we'll probably read the whole thing.
Whereas short-term rentals are an important part of the economy of Holiday Island that the city wishes to promote, and whereas increasingly full-time resident properties are being converted to short-term rentals, specifically VRBOs, and whereas it is recognized by the City Council that in order to protect the health and welfare of citizens, visitors, and the general community, as well as to protect the residential environment and property values, rules are needed regulating the management and occupancy of short-term rental properties. And whereas high occupancy in short-term rentals create a substantial risk to health and safety and have a high potential to create neighborhood nuisances, and whereas it is the obligation of the owners or operators of these properties to continue to pay all applicable state, county, and local sales taxes, including, if applicable, a city advertising promotion sales tax related to the provisions of short-term rental accommodations. Now be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Holiday Island, Arkansas, Section 1, that the following short-term rentals conditions in Attachment A shall be adopted. Section 2, that all resolutions, ordinances, and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, to the extent that such conflict, are hereby repealed. That in the event that any section, paragraph, subdivision, clause, phrase, definition, fee, fine, or other provisions or portion of this ordinance or the short-term rental conditions shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional, the same shall not affect the validity of this ordinance as a whole, or any part or provision other than the part so declined to be invalid or unconstitutional. The remaining provisions of this ordinance shall be construed as if such invalid, unenforceable, or unconstitutional provision or provisions had never been contained herein. Section 4, Emergency Clause. The City Council hereby finds and determines that due to the urgent and immediate need to provide for orderly growth and development, the general welfare of the citizens of Holiday Island, and to ensure consistency with enacted regulations, these short-term rental conditions should be made effective immediately. As such, an emergency is hereby declared to exist, shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage and approval. Passed and approved this date. Attachment A, short-term rental conditions for the City of Holiday Island, Arkansas. Owner-occupied short-term rental. The owner of the residential dwelling unit occupies a portion of the structure containing short-term rental at the same time as the short-term rental guests. Short-term rental, the residential dwelling portion of a dwelling unit or bedrooms within a residential dwelling unit leased or rented to guests for a period of less than 30 days, consecutive days. For purposes of this regulation, the term short-term rental shall not include properties or units subject to timeshare agreements, unless those timeshare units are being rented on a short-term basis to non-timeshare property owners and comply with Section 108. Timeshare. Estate plans where shared ownership of dwelling units is controlled by ACA 1814-301 and following are managed by a supervisory authority to control the aspects of the timeshare plan, including the promotion, advertising, and contracting. Section 1.02, permit required. Paragraph 1, a short-term rental shall not be operated except under issuance of conditional use permit for short-term rental by the Holiday Island City Planning Commission in accordance with the requirements of Planning and Zoning Regulations, Section 12 and following. Said permit is non-transferable. Said permit shall be effective for a period of 1 year from the date of issuance, then reviewed for any violations to these conditions, planning and zoning regulations, and all other ordinances, codes, and regulations of the City of Holiday Island. If compliance has been satisfactory to the sole discretion of the mayor or the mayor's designee, a renewal of said permit for a period of 1 year may be issued by the mayor or the mayor's designee. Said permit renewal period is not less than 30 days nor more than 60 days prior to the expiration date of the current permit. Conditional use permit for short-term rental may be revoked at any time by city officials or any court of competent jurisdiction for violations. Paragraph 2, notwithstanding any requirement of these conditions to the contrary, properties within the city of Holiday Island for which the building permit has been issued may, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, be granted a conditional use permit for short-term rental as provided herein upon application. Said permit shall be counted toward the maximum permits to be issued as provided in section 107. Any such property shall comply with all applicable requirements, including payment of an application fee. Granting of a conditional use permit for short-term rental pursuant to this subsection shall not be deemed to permit occupancy of a structure prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, nor shall it be deemed to supersede or abrogate any requirements of the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code with regard to construction. Section 103, application requirements for permit and renewal. An application for the issuance of a conditional use permit for short-term rental shall be on a form approved by the mayor or the mayor's designee. The application shall require the applicant to provide the following. Paragraph 1, the address of the short-term rental property, the name, address, telephone number, and email address of the property owner, and if different from the property owner, the name, address, telephone number, and address of the person who shall serve as a local point of contact, who shall reside within 25 miles of the short-term rental property. In paragraph 2, proof that the applicant is in compliance with the state, county, city, or collection of state, county, and local advertising and promotion taxes. Paragraph 3, proof that the applicant is in compliance with the city solid waste ordinance for trash collection. And paragraph 4, short-term rental not owner occupied. It's a payment for an initial conditional use application fee of $150 and a renewal conditional use application fee of $0, subject to the property owner possessing a current business license. Short-term rental owner occupied, payment of an initial conditional use application fee of $50 and a renewal conditional use application fee of $0, subject to the property owner possessing a current business license. Section 104, conditions precedent to issuance of a permit. Upon receipt of an application fulfilling the requirements of section 103 and prior to the conditional use permit for short-term rental issuance, the applicant shall agree that, 1, in the event that a safety complaint is made against the property, an inspection performed by the city code enforcement officer, city building inspector, fire chief, and/or law enforcement will be required. And 2, the short-term rental shall have posted within the structure a clearly visible location, a copy of the conditional use permit for short-term rental, the contact information to include a phone number and address for the local point of contact for the short-term rental. Additionally, recommended placed in an appropriately labeled binder, a copy of the city nuisance ordinance requirements, a copy of the city parking ordinance requirements, and a notice to all persons that guests, local points of contact, or property owners may be cited and fined for violations of applicable city ordinances. And 3, in addition to the restrictions defined in the planning and zoning regulation section 21.01, due to the narrow width of the streets, roads, on-street parking is strictly prohibited. The entirety of the paved surface of the street is considered traffic lanes. Parking in the street right-of-way is limited to the rental property owner's lot. Parking on adjacent vacant lots, whether owned by the rental property owner or not, is prohibited. Section 105, occupancy limits and restriction. At no time shall short-term rentals have or be offered for rent as having an occupancy greater than 3 guests per bedroom plus an additional 2 guests. The number of bedrooms shall be determined in the same manner as provided by the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code. Section 2 is reserved. Section 106, violations. Any person operating a short-term rental in violation of this article shall, for the first offense, be a fine not less than $250, no more than $500. For a second offense, the violator shall be fined an amount not less than $500, nor more than $1,000. For a third or subsequent offense, in addition to a fine of not less than $1,000, no more than the maximum fine allowed by state law. Any conditional use permit or short-term rental issued pursuant to the ordinance from which this article is derived shall be revoked by the court. For purposes of this article, a person operating a short-term rental shall be the owner, conditional use permit for short-term rental applicant, or the local point of contact required by section 103. Paragraph 2, the city shall have authority to seek legal and equitable relief from any court of competent jurisdiction for violations of the provisions of this article. Paragraph 3, no applicant of a property subject to a conditional use permit for short-term rental revocation shall be granted another conditional use permit for short-term rental for a period of 12 months from the date of any conditional use permit for short-term rental revocation. Section 107, maximum number of active permits to be issued has been marked reserved. The text below is not being considered. Section 108, timeshares. Timeshares units that are being rented for a short-term basis to non-timeshare property owners through the supervisory authority of the timeshare and covered by the short-term rental conditions with the following provisions. One conditional use permit for short-term rental for timeshare properties may be issued by the Holiday Island City Planning Commission to the timeshare supervisory authority covering each and every unit within the timeshare property. Paragraph 2, provision. Section 103, application requirements for permit applies to the timeshare supervisory authority, and in subsection 4 shall be replaced with the following. Payment of an initial conditional use permit for short-term rental application fee of $500 and renewal conditional use permit for short-term rental application fee of $0, subject to the supervisory authority of the timeshare possessing a current business license. And paragraph 3, provision for section 104, conditions precedent to issuance of a permit shall be replaced for short-term rental for the timeshare units with the following. A condition granting conditional use permit for short-term rental requires that the timeshare authority shall provide proof that the applicant has met the requirements of the state, county, and city collection of state, county, and local advertising and promotion taxes. And B, a condition of granting a conditional use permit for short-term rental requires that the timeshare supervisor provide the Holiday Island City Planning Commission with a copy of its, quote, rules of conduct, end quote, for short-term rentals. Rules of conduct must be satisfactory to the Holiday Island City Planning Commission at its sole discretion as a condition of approving or granting a permit. In paragraph 4, section 105, occupancy limits and restrictions applies to short-term rental of timeshare properties or timeshare units. Number 5, section 106, violations applies equally to timeshare authorities. Number 6, section 107, maximum number of active permits is issued shall not count toward short-term rental permits for timeshare short-term rentals toward the maximum number allowed in the city. Number 7, the conditional use permit for short-term rental shall be effective for a period of 1 year from the date of issuance. Section 109, future modifications. These conditions may be modified from time to time by the city council and shall be distributed by first-class mail when modified to each current conditional use permit for short-term rental grantee. Number 2, these conditions are the minimum requirements for the Holiday Island City Planning Commission, HICPC, to be used for considering a conditional use application for short-term rental. The HICPC may impose additional application-specific conditions in their sole discretion to apply when granting a conditional use permit for short-term rentals. Section 1.10, the effective dates. Sections 101 through section 105 inclusive, section 109 and section 1.10 should become effective on October 11, 2023. Number 2, section 106 through 108 inclusive shall become effective on July 1st, 2024. That's it in its entirety.
Okay. Are there any comments from the council members?
Have one suggestion on, find it. One that had a restriction on the person, contact person, 25 miles. Would that not be better to make that 50 so it would cover people living in Rogers, Fayetteville, and Branson, where you're likely to have some people who will be involved in this? I don't know what the 25 miles is.
I think did we decide 50?
No, I thought we did.
I think that's a typo of my point.
Yeah.
Well, mine says 25.
Right.
I know, but I think.
And now that you talk about it, we did decide 50 miles. So I need to change that, sir.
Okay. That's the only issue I have.
It's section 103, paragraph 1, needs to say 50 miles.
I had a question, it said, are you done? If you wanna go on.
No, what's the period of it? So. Okay. Never mind, I think that's applicable. I think the question would be applicable to the business cuts or any kind, right?
You can apply for a conditional use permit anytime.
Right. So that, and it goes from the year of issuance to the next year.
Well, conditional use permits, if I got it in February, it's renewed the following February.
That's what I meant, yeah. Okay, that's all I got.
Linda?
Okay, where it talks about the, issuance, building permit, may, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy be granted. Is that because you want, it seems like that's only needed if you were having a maximum number that you wanted to count, and you needed to get, before they moved in. Or before you were, like it was a new build and they were gonna be
102,
using it as
paragraph
a,
2.
I don't know,
if it was a new build and you were gonna be using it as a short-term rental just for that, you know, after it gets built. Why would you, I just couldn't understand why you did issue the permit prior to the certificate of occupancy. Why wouldn't you issue it right after the certificate of occupancy?
If somebody wants to build a structure specifically to be used as a short-term rental, they would want to have the conditional use permit approved before they spend a bunch of money building a building.
Okay, forget it.
or they might just wanna get it so they can put the building in use when
Right.
they get it done.
Otherwise, it might want to.
Otherwise, you got a 2 or 3 month lag.
Okay.
I had the same initial question.
Any other questions,
Yeah, I
comments?
got on the ordinance itself, the second whereas, where we say specifically VRBOs. It makes it sound like this entire ordinance is only for VRBOs, but we've got Airbnbs, we've got owner managed, we got property managed, management company managed. So I think we should take out that,
you're right.
specifically VRBOs.
Should they just say short-term rentals?
Just say short-term rentals, just take out that specific.
Yeah, it doesn't really change the meaning of the
No.
whereas.
Okay, so we're striking specifically VRBOs.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I do. I can find them. Okay, over in section of the conditions, in section 103, paragraph 2, no, not paragraph 2, paragraph 4, it says that you want them to pay a fee of $150 for the conditional use application fee, and a renewal of $100. Oh, that was
Zero.
changed to
I'm
0.
gonna change that to 0.
Yeah.
Change that to
And
0.
add, okay, so we're not asking them to do any renewal fees? Is that because they have to pay for the business
Yeah,
license to be renewed?
I believe we agreed at the workshop
Well, that,
that we weren't gonna have 3 requirements, business license, annual fee for the well, actually 2 then, and an annual fee for the conditional use permit.
Okay,
It would just be, the initial conditional use permit is basically required by law. It's in our ordinances, and by law, we can't, we have to have the public hearings and all of that kind of stuff. So that's why the fee is in there for the upfront application to cover the cost of.
do they have to, do a new application every year for the cup?
The application form has new or renewal.
So they would fill it out again and
They have
make
to
sure we
fill
have
it
the
out
latest
and
contact
submit
and
it.
all that?
On the screen,
I had,
I have it. This application is first time or renewal.
Okay,
are
okay,
you done?
not yet.
No.
Wait,
Not
see if
yet.
she catches
Okay.
my grammar.
Hold on.
I thought of something.
Okay, so when you got over to the timeshare, renewals, I can't find it in here, but wherever we were talking about timeshare stuff,
On page
it's only,
5,
and it was only $500. Oh, here it is, yeah. Why isn't that more? They have 28 units. Shouldn't it be more proportional?
But we don't know that those 28 units are being all rented out as short-term rentals. And we have no idea.
But what I'm saying is, they're bound to be rented out at some point in time. Each one of them has a possibility of 51 owners, 51 weeks. So don't you think they're all probably rented out at some point?
So do all the other things.
Because they don't have that many owners to fill this.
We didn't come to a real consensus on
I don't
the
know,
fee
I don't-
piece during our workshops.
It's like 28 houses being up for short-term rental, or the possibility of it at least. I mean, even houses on Airbnb they don't all get rented all the time, so.
I don't know,
What would you recommend?
What's a reasonable fee?
Well, you're charging $150 for a house, and only three
four
times
that.
more?
Yeah, 3 times that much.
yeah, but
for 28, right, for 28 houses.
it's not supposed to be a revenue though, it's.
We're not talking about revenues, we're talking about cost.
I'm talking about being fair.
Well, I know, but how many, are they gonna fill out? They're not gonna fill out 28 conditional use
You're
permits.
gonna have one.
They're only gonna have
No, we
one.
only asked them to do one. I'm
Okay,
saying the cost should be higher.
why? We're only asking,
Because
they're still,
it
they're
should
doing
be more in
28.
proportion to what other people pay.
No,
That's my feeling.
but it's not we're not trying to make a revenue, we're trying to cover the cost
The cup,
of the cup.
of the process.
And they're filling out one application, we're charging them 500, and if I have one house, I'm filling out one application and paying 150.
But if you have 3 houses, you're filling out 3
Yeah,
applications.
that's
and
450
paying-
for 3 houses.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get revenue based on their
I
business.
might think otherwise, though,
Well,
and I'm just
well,
putting it
And I
forward
might
as a
disagree,
possibility.
so
Yeah.
there we go. I think that's what the philosophy we talked about in workshop was.
I don't want to turn down potential revenue when we can use it to a good purpose.
It's a one-time fee, so
And
it's not gonna be an ongoing revenue stream.
it's a one-time fee for them that won't cost them much of anything, really.
Mr. Mayor, are you not done yet? All right.
I just had some wording changes here for the rest of it.
When we talked about this originally, the original ordinance had some statements in there about grandfathering existing. How are we going to handle that now? There's nothing in here.
We're not grandfathering anything.
Okay.
Any short-term rental needs to apply for
Take up.
a cup. Because it's in our zoning ordinance, and state law requires that we hold a public hearing and,
You could do that in a mass hearing, you know.
Yeah, we can have a public hearing that has multiple listings on it
Yeah.
to be considered at one meeting. That's not a problem. They don't have to be individual specific meetings.
Well, is October 11th, that's the date we had?
October 10th is our next one. We have an application that we've accepted is in place that will be processed on October 10th. So that's why I put the effective date at the 11th, so it wouldn't impact them. We've already accepted their money, made plans.
Okay, and I just had a few minor wording changes to straighten up the wording.
Okay.
And in section 108, it says authority of the timeshare and covered, it should be are covered. And it should be are there. And let me get that there.
I'm gonna do it on paper because I don't have the working document on the screen, yeah.
I'll have it on mine.
108,
Yeah, it says, timeshare units that are being rented on a short-term basis to non-timeshare property owners through the supervisory authority of the timeshare are covered by the short-term rental then, everywhere there are several places where you've talked about the supervisory authority,
Yes.
except in certain places it's missing.
Oh, okay.
So, like, in, paragraph 3A, it says requires that the timeshare authority, I think it should be timeshare supervisory authority, just to be straight.
Okay.
And then the next paragraph talks about the timeshare supervisory without the word authority. The second,
okay.
second sentence under B.
Got it.
And then, after that, I had one question, oh, here, down here, in 5, it's to timeshares, it should be supervisory authority, right there, the last part of that. Timeshare supervisory authority, that way it's consistent all the way through. And I don't understand the meaning, how we're using the word equally in that same sentence. It says violations applies equally, and it should be violations apply, or a violation applies. You've got 2 S's there together.
Okay. Well, the intent when I drafted that was that 106 applies to them the same as it does to everybody else. That's why I used the word.
Okay, applies.
You know, there's no exceptions in 106. It applies to the supervisory. Maybe just simply say it applies to the supervisory timeshare authority. Just take the word out.
It would sound better to me. I just
Okay.
couldn't figure out what equally meant there.
Okay.
So, if you'd continued the sentence that said it applies equally to the timeshare unit as it does non-timeshare or something, I would get it.
Just take equally out, just,
Well, if it applies to them, I could strike the whole line. I could just take it all out.
that's
You
true.
don't even have to say it.
I don't have it, and renumber the following one. I'll just strike it. There's a 6 and 7.
Oh, yeah.
Should I strike it?
Yeah, I'll
Strike.
Strike number 5 and renumber this one to 5 and this one to 6. And I don't think I have any reference issues to chase down.
Okay, the other thing I had a problem with, maybe getting into what Ken was saying, it was as of the, okay, this says, can't remember where I read this, but it took 28 days to go through the CUP process.
At a minimum,
At a minimum,
right,
based on your flow chart.
right.
So I said, okay, as of the end of September, it's 3 months until January 1st. When this becomes effective, the last sentence says it becomes effective January 1st.
Okay.
So you got 3 months, okay. The CUP process will take 2 months from the application submitted, and the deadline for submitting, the earliest deadline to submit the application is the 2nd Tuesday of October, which is October 10th. So it can't be approved until, at the earliest, until December 12th.
It's only 1 month.
I know, it's 1 month.
No, it's only 1 month between October, from the deadline of October 10 to the 2nd Tuesday of November.
But it says it took 28 days.
Well, that's 1 month. It's 31 days in some months.
Oh, I read that as 2 months.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought, yeah.
Okay, so you got 2 cycles of HIPCC.
Or we could have one every week if we get it in
A
enough
special
advance.
meeting.
Yeah, we could call it early and
Okay, I
have
was
it.
worried about you wouldn't have enough time to do
You know,
it.
to get the process done, we don't have to meet monthly. We could make an exception and
That's fine.
have more meetings, more hearings.
Yeah, you're gonna have 150 applications at least. probably.
Hopefully.
Okay, I have one minor little, comma out, but it's in section 104, paragraph 3. It says, in addition, comma, to the restrictions, that comma should go. In addition to the restrictions defined in blah, 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 and then you say comma. Agree or not agree?
Strike the first one after addition.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, and all the, plenty. Any other comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll open it up to the floor. If you have comments, please come up to the podium and turn the mic on and Hearing none? we
Wait,
can-
wait, wait, wait,
Oh.
wait, everyone, who's on the go card?
Go ahead, you.
Bryce Holland, Woodsdale, 5 Woodsdale. So I just want to say it looks a lot better than it did a few days ago. They'll fix the restrictions on how many would be put out. That's a good thing. I'm on the same with Linda over there about the amount given. At some point, some things have to be proportionate to what's given out. A single house versus a timeshare with multiple places is different, and I think we'll see that in the future here coming up in another one with businesses. I wasn't sure, do they have to have a business license before they apply for this, or do they have to have this before they can apply for a business license? 'Cause
The plan is to get your conditional use permit as a, have that
it's
first.
back and forward,
Yep.
and then have it in the renewal. Okay, it looks better for me.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
I'm Mike Smith, I'm from 12 Lakeside. I own a house at 8 Indian Wells Drive. I'm a little surprised because the first I knew about any of this on Airbnbs was something that the Chamber of Commerce put on a Facebook page a week ago. So to think that it was well publicized, that this was coming, I'd say it's just, who was the outreach with the people that actually own the Airbnbs? I lost $5,099 last year with my Airbnb. I was hoping break even this year, but it's now long-term rental. In that time since, I've had to put a roof on my house. This certainly is not a money-making venture for people. What I don't know is how we even got here. What the process was that made people think that there was some kind of ordinance. I would have asked all these questions as things were going on, had I known they were going on. This started out as a recreational community. I'm just thinking of a guy that just bought a house 4 doors up from me, paid like $350,000 for his house over by me. He's a young couple, and I'm relatively certain they probably know nothing about this. And they were excited because they bought a house and they're Airbnb-ing it when they're not there to help make the payments. What can you at least tell me what drove this to begin with, to even need an ordinance?
Well, I can tell you why we developed this ordinance. First of all, every city has one, but that's not necessarily a good reason to do it. But there are things that we felt needed to have some, that the city needed to have some control over, in order to, as our whereas say, to protect the health and safety of the residents, to try to maintain some, some sense of neighborhood in the community here, and just to not have the place be the wild, wild west when it comes to rental property.
Has there been a complaint that, I'm aware of one rental property that had a complaint, and that was like 49 Lakeside Drive, because they park all over there. I check with the neighbors where I live. Anytime I get somebody, each one of us are competing against the other person. As far as keeping our property up and everything, we don't rent if our property is not maintained. It's not like a long-term rental where we have to go in literally every week and make sure that it's perfect, so that we get good reviews, so that we can, that's what I don't see. I don't see what made this a driving thing versus long-term rentals where the people just frankly don't care because of it.
Look at it, we pass ordinances in order to prevent problems. We don't wait necessarily for a big pile of problems and then try to figure out how to pass an ordinance to make that problem go away.
Okay.
That's kind of where we are with the building code thing. for years, people built houses out here. It was the wild, wild west of
Yeah,
house building.
and I get that, Dan.
And now we're having a heck of a time trying to change the mindset of everybody here, that it's not the wild, wild west anymore. We're gonna follow building codes and, that's all we're trying to do here.
What have been the complaints on the units themselves? So, I mean, if we get a complaint or my property manager gets a complaint, they let me know right away. I've changed out a bed in 1 week, changed out because somebody complained about the bed.
Well,
in it.
I can give you one example of a problem 3 houses up from me. They rented it out this weekend, and at noon on Monday, the overflowing garbage can was already sitting at the end of the driveway, waiting for the garbage truck to pick it up on Thursday morning. Is that the kind of neighbor that you want to live next door to that?
Absolutely not, but that's something the renter or the owner ought to be taking care of anyway. I mean, that sounds like an owner's citation.
How do you enforce it if you don't?
There's a property owner that gets, how would you do it at my house? You find the property owner. It's the same way with parking. I'm a little concerned about the parking being, because at any given time, we have people that have parties outside their houses, and the streets are partially blocked. Probably a week ago, I went up Shields, and there's a Holiday Island truck taking a big chunk of Shields while they cut a tree out of the yard that had fallen. And it's like, the ordinance, the way it's written, it's only targeting Airbnbs, it looks like.
It's targeting short-term rentals. It is specifically a short-term rental ordinance.
I really think that you're impacting a whole lot of people, and I think that just on the public comment piece, again, just having done state management stuff for a lot of years, I think you do some of that, because you didn't do outreach to the people that owned it.
We had several public hearings and meetings about the business license and the short-term
Who
rental.
did you notify?
We notify it, we put our meeting notifications in.
When I do an ADA outreach, Dan, I have to aim it at the impacted public.
So you're saying that every time we have a meeting, we should send
No, but
a letter
if you're
to-
talking about VRBOs, you ought to be talking to people that are
We
managing.
don't know who those people are. We have no idea
Okay,
who the VRBO owners are.
If anybody else would go out to Holiday Island Lodging or Holiday Island Vacation Rentals, I mean, practically every buy that rents and is out there.
Well,
I mean-
they came to the hearings. Those people came.
Did you come? I didn't know it. How come you didn't say anything to me?
Well, he wasn't on our program at the time, so we didn't.
Mike,
Yes.
you say we're impacting VRBOs. How are we impacting, so I understand what your
Well,
concern is?
It just,
Because the only impact I see is a fee to get.
the fee doesn't bother me.
Okay,
It just, I guess my issue is I didn't know anything about this coming. I just think as a community, we want to try to do things that people want to come here for.
okay.
I have friends that own, and they're gonna be surprised, and that's gonna be Mike Chitwood. He's gonna be surprised to find out that he's suddenly has a fee. This is a guy that's been coming here for 12 years, before he bought his property.
How would we notify them differently? We do our public notices through the
I
avenues.
I don't, because that has to differ with each and every thing you're discussing, what proper public outreach might look like. It's so easy to say, well, I want to put it on a webpage, but if you have 40 or 50% of the people that don't live here, that they don't know about the webpage or things that might be impacting them. And where's that information offered when people buy their houses?
As far as someone investigating Holiday Island to purchase a home, that's what we have ordinances for, and they can do their due diligence to search through those. I get calls and emails from people asking about their properties. Can I do such and such? Is this permitted? Is that not? I reply to the people who ask.
Yeah, Again, I don't know who does that and who doesn't, I don't. And my house is a long-term rental right now. I mean, and I have no idea if that'll ever change or not, as my daughter's in it, so. But again, I'm just thinking that this, I'm surrounded by VRBOs. I've never seen any issues. The properties are well maintained. I know that I went out of my way to make sure that mine was. I wish my daughter was doing as well with it.
But with passage of this and adopting the conditional use permits, those are public hearings. They'll put our notification out. So if something happens in your neighborhood that you have a concern about, it gives you an opportunity to express that. So the planning commission can either not accept it or accept it. So that's why we have the CUP process. And the goal of this also is to make certain that we are aware of who's in that home or what it's being used for. So if there is an issue that the city needs to get involved in, we know who to contact.
Yeah.
Right now, we don't have a clue. So without this, we don't have a clue.
I would assume the city always went back to the property owner because that's who's ultimately responsible for the property, so.
Our plan is for the business license and for the short-term rental CUP process. We're gonna have to send, to your point, we need to notify people. We're gonna have to send a letter to every property owner, just on the outside chance that they run a business, or that they have a VRBO, or B&B or something like that.
I have just one more statement. You know, Airbnbs have been, they've been a thing for what, maybe 15 years? It's not been but if you think about it, Holiday Island's been a recreational community since it was created. And, people, it's a second house community, people have always loaned out their properties, and I hear all the time from people are like, oh, I'm gonna be gone for a while, I have this person watching my house. Where does the VRBO start and stop? I mean, all you're doing is impacting people that are reporting the income. And basically you're gonna be shoving people underground.
Yeah. I don't think we're doing anything that's gonna discourage the vacation rental business in Holiday Island. I don't think that there's anything in this ordinance that's going to handcuff people.
$150 is probably, in the scheme of things, is not gonna destroy people one way or the other. I did hear, well, we gotta automate, and it's like, this is not a cash cow even for, I have 2 houses because I couldn't make any money off the interest in the bank. And it's not a cash cow.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm Peggy Lodewijk, 19 Bob White Lane, and the interim president for the Holiday Island Chamber of Commerce. The chamber does not support either ordinance 2023-16 or when you get to 2020 as written. It seems more equitable and a better business practice in some one ordinance, including all businesses. Business licenses with a fee structure by industry with an enhancement percentage if not paid on time. No set limit on businesses, including short-term rentals, letting the economy and the competition determine the number. Advertising and promotional tax paid to the city for the sole purpose of advertising and promoting of Holiday Island is by newly formed A&P Commission, a privilege license to protect our homeowners when outside businesses come in, keeping the money away from our community. One compassing altogether ordinance enables business to satisfy all the requirements in one time, not keep coming back and forth. The city needs license revenue. The businesses need promotional funds for additional customers. Please consider a committee of businesses to draft an ordinance to be presented to the council. This will eliminate the problems that you're enhancing or that you think. Thank you.
questions about the ordinance. So with the hearing, does the property owner have to attend? You know, once they get, so when they're getting their conditional use certificate?
There's no requirement for that. No.
Okay, so you don't really have to go to the hearing, you just apply and,
Right.
okay.
Right.
The reason for the public hearing is to let the neighbors know there's something happening in their neighborhood, or people that have concerns can speak their piece. It's also for the applicant to defend their application if there's questions. So there's no need, there's no requirement for attendance.
Okay. And then, what is the ordinance on parking for like one-way streets? Specifically ones that really don't have driveways or garages?
We don't have anything addressing one-way streets.
We say you can't park on the street, period, don't we?
Yeah, that is
Do we?
some commercial.
I think so. Look, Dan, don't we say you cannot park on the street, period?
In this, we say that they can't park on the street.
No parking on the street, period.
In a commercial zoned area? So this street over here with all these cars parked on the street, everybody's in violation?
No, only if they're VRBO. That's actually what the regulations
So the
are.
residents that don't have a garage or a driveway, they're.
We don't allow parking on the street, so what you're talking about, if that's happening, that's a violation that we need to take care of. It's not permitted anywhere in Holiday Island to park on the streets.
So we're.
You can't make that street over there.
They should have a driveway.
Is it set aside with parking on the side, or is it only an 18-foot or 19-foot road?
It's probably 18 foot, it's a one-way road, and there's, the only parking you have is on, either in your driveway or on the street.
Is it 2 cars wide? Can you get through there if people are parking next to the curb or whatever it is?
Yes, if people are parked on both sides, you can get through.
There's only one street.
We should probably address that.
It's a unique street. It's a unique street.
It's a
That
unique
must be a
street.
unique street here.
Maybe what needs is, that be striped for parking, so it's clear what the right of way is. But we don't have an ordinance that directly talks about one-way street parking.
Yeah.
Talk to, first of all, I'm not totally sure that that's still a one-way street, because
It does say
The
one.
sign, there is a sign,
It is, it
there
does.
is a sign there now.
Yeah.
Okay.
but it is commercial. I mean, it used to be commercial, so it still is
That would
zoned
be
that way.
the only exception. You'd have the same issue up in the bluffs where they have curb and gutter.
So like most of these that don't have driveways or garages, there's room for 2 cars in front. So can we make an exception for that? Because otherwise,
You made a good point, and I think that does need to be considered, since you have no driveways.
there's no driveways. I mean, only a few of them have garages or
I'd like to get with ISID on that.
Yeah. But it seems like we could probably write in an exception for certain streets in the zoning regulations or something.
Or,
Isn't that where it is?
Yeah, it's in
I
2101.
think the only, like I say, I think the only issue you have are over there in Blue
Just a
Water
couple of streets.
and up in the bluffs where you have curb and gutter. And just, the rest of us, you got. You made your own off street.
We'll take a look at that. We'll have to talk, first of all, we'll have to talk to HICID, because that, at least that particular street is a HICID street. So I don't know if they have any regulation on parking on their street. And secondly, we'll probably have to consult with the fire department to, as to whether or not
You gotta get emergency
every,
vehicles through.
basically every street in Holiday Island is, for all practical purposes, a fire lane. And if you have, if the parking on the street prevents them from getting a fire engine down the street, that would be a problem. What I'm thinking the solution might be, and we can discuss, it wouldn't require a change to the ordinance necessarily, but we could leave it up to the discretion of the planning commission when they're considering a conditional use permit. If there's no other parking, you know, it is part of the application process, the consideration process, to determine whether or not there's adequate parking to justify the conditional use permit. If the adequate parking is determined to be street parking, then that could be part of the conditional use permit for that particular address.
Okay.
I think that would be the most reasonable. Otherwise, we're gonna have to go all the way through Holiday Island and look at every street individually and say, yeah, you can park on this one, you can't park on this one, you can park on this one up until this point.
No,
But
I
then you
agree,
can't
I
park
just
on
don't
it.
wanna get fined,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I think, you know, it's already part of the approval process to consider whether or not parking is adequate. So, I think that could be up to the discretion of the planning commission.
Well, my only thought was I need to look at the language for certain whether that's a DOC or planning commission, but there's an avenue to allow it, to make a variance, I think is a DOC thing.
And the county officer does, you know, frequently go through there, sometimes the wrong way.
But now that you mention it, you know, that one of the complaints that we've had is from a full-time resident over on that particular street, because on a busy weekend, the VRBOs have the street parked full from one end to the other. So,
And that is false, and I'm sure I know who that is, because there's open lots and there's plenty of parking.
I'm thinking ahead, but, and this is gonna be Lynn's problem to solve.
No, I'm the secretary, it's Don's.
Don's
Well,
problem.
I was gonna suggest, I would love, like, I would even paint it myself, but like, you know, AD, like 19 AD.
That's what I'm thinking, that we'd have to stripe the street for reserve parking for
Yes.
particular addresses. That seems like the solution.
I think the biggest concern I would have over there is fire and ambulance getting through, because I've been over there, both sides of the roads are taken by trucks and boats and whatnot. There's barely room to get through, am I correct?
There's times if you're parking on the corners.
Right. So I would be concerned about an ambulance having to go in and save somebody's life, or a fire department truck. I don't know if we would ever get through there.
And maybe they can, you know, maybe a solution would be for the property owners to get what I said and get an agreement that they could use this parking lot over here on the weekends for overflow parking.
Well, there's
It's never.
boat parking right down here.
That's
Okay, but if it's long-term people, residents, you have the same issue. Like, it'll be all the time. Every day. So, I think there's more to it.
Okay, thank you, good point.
Yeah, very good.
Also, 22 Buckskin Lane, no, I do not own an Airbnb, bed and breakfast or anything else. First of all, I think everybody here should consider that these people in front of you all work no pay. All the time they spent reading these ordinances and working together and comparing them to other situations and such to find out, you know, how, something that will help our town. We do not really want the wild, wild west. They held several workshops which were publicized in accordance with the rules that they have to follow. They were put on the, you know, in the Holiday Island.us newsletter, which everybody should be subscribed to. They were advertised on Facebook. They were advertised on What's New, or, you know. Next door. I know they had at least 2 workshops, and it was on 2 city council meetings, because I was at all 4 of those meetings. I don't think they're really asking for a lot. And those of you that have Airbnbs should want, you know, these few simple rules that would then make it easy for other people to come in. If you're running a good business, you know, you don't want people coming in that would not follow good basic rules. You know, and it's a small licensing fee, a one-time special use permit. It's not a lot of money, as, you know, the city fees should not be a big fundraiser. That's all they're asking for, is to money for these licenses. You shouldn't be using license fees to, for other expenses other than that. And, you know, good rules will develop good business. And thank you all.
Don House, 68 Schittsburg. I agree with Al. My concern does concern parking and emergency vehicles getting down the road on a lot of these. I live on a short one lane road, very short. It's a dead end also. When you put this, then you had in your ordinance here, you were talking about they're gonna have to post the rules in the VRBO, in the short-term rental.
Make the ordinances available in the rental,
Okay.
in a notebook.
Okay, and so that will address parking vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's something I think should be considered. You had a limitation on number of people in the house, number of bedrooms and that type of thing.
Occupancy limit?
Did you have a limitation on the number of cars that could be parked?
No, we just say that the parking has to be
On
in
the
the right of
property?
way for that lot and not on the adjacent lot or any other lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a number, it's just what space is there.
And it also says no parking on the street, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, those are my concerns, and I know we're gonna have VRBOs and short-term rentals. I think that's a given. I think it's probably good for the community in this way. So anyway, thank you very much.
Any other comments?
I do.
Yes.
The impetus or the push to get this done tonight was because of what's happening with October 10. We have a conditional use permit application that the planning commission needs to consider. And in that, because it's conditional, there was no guidance for us to what the conditions would be. So we asked the city council to get to this point that we're at tonight so that it can be approved, so the planning commission has guidance. A minimum amount of guidance, so that's the reason that I pushed for this tonight.
Okay. And I guess my parting comment on this would be that, you know, we've tried to incorporate as much input as we could from the workshops that we had. I think we've taken a lot of the restrictions out of here that were in earlier versions of this. I don't really see where this ordinance is going to be in any way detrimental to the short-term rental, vacation rental business in Holiday Island. I think it will help us prevent problems going forward. And you know, the fewer problems we have, the better reputation the community will have for people to come here and enjoy our facilities. So if there's no more comments, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elwood. Aye. Councilmember Graves.
So this is the motion to approve.
The motion, this
As
is the
amended.
vote to approve the
As
motion
amended.
as amended.
Okay. Aye. Councilmember Kuhn, aye. Councilmember Mills.
Aye.
Okay, the ordinance passes.
Oh, there's a emergency.
I'll print new copies for your signature.
There is an emergency clause, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the emergency clause.
Make the motion, we approve the emergency clause.
Ken made a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Pat seconded it. Any discussion? Roll call vote on that.
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elwood,
Aye.
Councilmember Briggs,
Aye.
Councilmember Coogan, aye, Councilmember Mills.
Aye.
Okay, the emergency clause passes and the ordinance is in effect.
October 11th, or part of it.
Like I said earlier, when Mike was making his comments, our intent is to send out a notice in the near future to all the every residents, to every residential address in Holiday Island, to make everyone aware of this ordinance being passed. Okay. Moving on then to ordinance 2023-020, an ordinance establishing a business license requirement for the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2023-020?
Make a motion, we approve ordinance 2023-020.
Ken made a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Lynn seconded it. I'll go ahead and read this. It's going to take a little bit, but I think it's important to read the ordinance in its entirety. An ordinance establishing a business license requirement for the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas, declaring an emergency and for other purposes. Whereas business licensing ensures that businesses operate legally and safely, protects the public's health and safety, and holds companies accountable for their actions and behavior. And whereas a registry of businesses allows for better communication between the city and businesses, should the city need to communicate on pending issues. And whereas a business registry assists the city in evaluating the economic health of the city and in determining the needs and opportunities, strengths and weaknesses of the businesses. And whereas in order to anticipate the needs of emergency personnel to protect the city's sewer and water system from contamination and to provide for more efficient fire protection, now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Holiday Island, Arkansas, that Section 1, following business registry and licensing regulation attached hereto as Exhibit A shall be adopted. Section 2, any ordinance or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed to the extent of the conflict. Section 3, in the event that any section, paragraph, subdivision, clause, phrase, or other provision or portion of this ordinance shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional, the same shall not affect the validity of this ordinance as a whole, or any part or provision other than the part that is so decided to be invalid or unconstitutional. The remaining provisions of this ordinance shall be construed as if such invalid, unenforceable, or unconstitutional provisions or provisions had never been contained herein. Section 4, declaration of emergency. It is hereby found and determined that the business registry and licensing regulations shall be immediately adopted in order to protect the public's health and safety, hold companies accountable for their actions and behavior, and to ensure that businesses operate legally and safely in the city of Holiday Island. Therefore, an emergency is declared to exist, this act being immediately necessary for the preservation and protection of the public health, safety, peace, and welfare of the city and the citizens shall become effective on the date of its passage and approval by the mayor. If the ordinance is neither approved nor vetoed by the mayor, it shall become effective on the expiration of the period of time during which the mayor may veto this ordinance. If the ordinance is vetoed by the mayor, and the veto is overridden by the city council, shall become effective on the date of the city council override of the veto. Passed and approved, the city council of Holiday Island, Arkansas, on this date of 9/19/2023. Okay, business license and registry, section 101, applicability, general businesses, section 1, all businesses, institutions, corporations, LLCs, LLPs, partnerships, non-profit associations or corporations, sole proprietorships, home occupations, or other non-governmental entities with a physical address which operates within Holiday Island city limits shall be required to file for the City of Holiday Island Business Registry. In addition, any person or non-governmental entity who has or should have a sales tax permit and operates out of a physical address within Holiday Island shall be required to file for the City of Holiday Island business license. A covered business or entity with multiple physical addresses in Holiday Island must obtain a separate business license for each such business address. In addition, section 3, in addition, any person or non-governmental entity who is engaged in any trade or occupation which requires federal or state license and who operates out of a physical address within Holiday Island shall be required to file for a City of Holiday Island business license. Section is misnumbered here. This should
No,
be
you
section.
added it, you added the second 3 is what
Yeah,
you
this should be section 4. Section 4, in addition, any person or non-governmental entity who is engaged in any trade or occupation in Holiday Island who operates out of a physical address outside of Holiday Island shall be required to file for a City of Holiday Island business license except as noted in section 4 and section B, C, D, E, or F below. Section 5, this should be section 4 below, or section 5 below. Section 5, any person, firm, individual, or corporation who pays a license fee in another city in Arkansas is exempt from obtaining a Holiday Island business license unless said person, firm, individual, or corporation maintains a physical address in Holiday Island, reference Arkansas Code annotated ACA 2677-102B. Section B, religious entities. Churches and other religious institutions are exempt from this chapter unless they are performing functions like daycare that must be licensed by the state or that generate revenue upon which state sales and use tax must be paid. The city business license shall not be required for a religious entity, but only for those functions that require a state license upon which state sales tax and use taxes must be paid. Section C, nonprofit entities. No organizations operating in good standing with the IRS and the state of Arkansas as a nonprofit entity shall be required to obtain a city business license, but shall be required to file an application for the city business directory. That should be business registry. I always find these mistakes on the public reading. Section D, minors exempt. No individual under 18 years of age shall be required to register or obtain a business license. Minors are prohibited from leasing, advertising, managing, or any other activity unless they are an emancipated minor. Section E, individual landlords renting less than 3 dwelling units exempt. An individual landlord not operating as a corporation, LLC, or LLP, or other business entity who rents out less than 3 dwelling units, then no commercial, industrial, or institutional unit, site, or building shall be exempt from this chapter. However, a landlord that operates a short-term residential rental shall not be exempt and must apply for and obtain a business license for each individual short-term rental. Home occupations permitted by the city's zoning regulations and where customers are not required to travel to and from the residence for business purposes, and the business does not have any employees other than the owner of said business, are not required to obtain a business license. Section 1.02, entry upon business registry and issuance of business license. Section A, annual application required. Every applicable business or other entity identified in section 1.0 shall annually complete an application for business registry and license substantially as shown in Exhibit A, which can be administratively amended by the mayor, and pay the appropriate fees as required by this chapter. Section B is the time for application submittal. Applications and annual renewals for existing business license holders shall be completed between September 1 and October 31 of each year. Business licenses shall be issued for the fiscal year of January 1 to December 31st. That should read calendar year, not fiscal year. New businesses locating to Holiday Island or entities to which these provisions become applicable in the future shall register and obtain their business license within 2 months of their move into Holiday Island or commencement of activities. Section C, grace period for enforcement. Businesses subject to business licensing in the city of Holiday Island that were in operation at the time of passage of this ordinance will have a 4-month grace period from the date of passage of this ordinance to obtain a business license. Section D, requirements and fees. Paragraph 1, home-based businesses. A resident conducting a non-traffic generating occupation, profession, or business within the residence dwelling unit and which is in compliance with the city's zoning regulations shall submit an application for business registry and license within 2 months of the passage of this ordinance or opening their business. There shall be no fee for registration of a home business. Paragraph 2, all other non-home-based businesses, annual fees to submit the business first application for business registry and license shall be $35 if submitted by October 31st. Applications submitted after October 31st deadline shall incur a fee of $40 after initial registration and receipt of the business license. Annual renewal shall be $25 if paid by October 31st. Otherwise, the additional late payment of $15 shall be assessed. Businesses existing at the time of this ordinance becomes effective will only pay the renewal fee for their initial business license. Partial year registration fee for new business. If a new business or entity registers and applies for a license after January 1, the fee for the business license through December 31 shall be prorated. Section D, issuance of business license. The recorder, treasurer, or designee shall promptly issue a business license to any applicable business or entity which promptly completes the application for business registry and license, pays the proper fee, and is not ineligible for a business license because of prior suspension or revocation of the license, lack of a required state or city permit, or violation of state or city ordinance. Paragraph 2, registration of a business license is not transferable or assignable. Upon the sale, merger, or transfer of business ownership, the new owner must register and apply for a business license within 30 days of the date of transfer or reopening of the business. Paragraph 3, if the recorder treasurer initially refuses to issue a business license, the applicant shall be entitled to a due process hearing before the mayor concerning the grounds for refusal to issue the license. The applicant can appeal the mayor's decision to the city council in the same manner prescribed for an appeal of the mayor's decision to suspend or revoke a business license. Paragraph E, display of business license. Every business and other entity receiving a business license shall prominently display business license near any other licenses required for the business and issued by the governmental entity. Business license shall be displayed where customers or visitors into the establishment will be able to view the business license. Section 1.03, suspension and revocation of the business license. Paragraph 8, grounds that could support suspension or revocation of a business license. Section 1, valid complaints that a business license holder is operating a business in a dangerously unsanitary or unhealthy manner, or in such manner as to be unreasonable or adversely affect the peace, health, or safety of neighbors or the public. 2, the determination that the premises are a fire hazard or otherwise unsafe for occupancy because of violations of building, property maintenance, or fire codes. 3, the business is delinquent in submitting hotel, motel, or restaurant or city alcohol tax forms, or in payment of city's hotel, motel, or restaurant taxes or other city or state taxes or required fees, if any. The business or section 4, the business is being operated in violation of any federal or state law or city ordinance, or has had a necessary state or city license suspended or revoked. 5, the business license was procured through fraud or misrepresentation. Section B, posting. If the code enforcement officer has reason to believe that the grounds exist that could justify the suspension or revocation of a business license, the officer shall mail a letter to the business mailing address shown on the application by first-class mail, and copying the city treasurer recorder, notifying the business owner of the possible grounds to suspend or revoke the license, and setting a due process hearing not less than 5 nor no more than 10 business days. The officer shall also telephone the business owner using the business phone number provided on the application, as well as an emergency phone number if the owner cannot be reached on the business phone number, and provide the same information as within the letter. The failure of the business owner to receive the mailing or the phone calls made pursuant to this provision shall not affect the validity of a due process hearing. Section C, conduct of the due process hearing. Paragraph 1, the mayor shall provide a reasonable date, time, and space for the due process hearing, and shall receive evidence from the city employees or others about the grounds to suspend or revoke the business license. 2, business license holder shall then be granted an opportunity to explain or provide evidence to rebut any allegations and to show why the business license should not be suspended or revoked. 3, after the business license holder has had a reasonable opportunity to explain his side, the mayor can do one of the following depending upon the mayor's judgment of the seriousness of the provision of the proven ground. I, revoke the business license. I, suspend the business license or not for not more than 30 days. I, place the business on probation status for not more than 90 days on condition that the grounds causing the problems will be remedied by the business license owner and not be allowed to reoccur. If the business license owner complies with the probation status shall be lifted and no further action shall be taken. If the mayor determines that the business license owner has failed to correct the problems or new grounds or suspension or revocation have occurred, the mayor shall conduct a second due process hearing and consider all previous evidence whether or not the business license should be suspended or revoked. 4, refuse to revoke or suspend the license, which shall remain valid. Any complaint about the events leading to the hearing shall not be considered again. Section 1.04 is appeal to the city council. Any person or entity whose license has been suspended or revoked pursuant to section 1.03 or was denied a business license upon application may appeal such suspension, revocation, or denial to the city council, providing the city clerk's office with a written request for the city council to review within 10 business days of the issuance of the suspension, revocation, or denial. City council may then determine after a public hearing in which the business license owner may present evidence and explanations whether the business owner's license should be suspended for not more than 30 days, revoked because of the grounds presented, or that no suspension or revocation is warranted, or whether the business owner will be granted additional time to secure their business license. Section 1.05, nuisances. No business, licensed or not, shall be so conducted or operated as to constitute a nuisance in fact. Section 1.06, inspections. Whenever inspections of the premises used for or in connection with the operation of a licensed business or occupation are required by ordinance or by state or county law or regulation, it shall be the duty of the licensee or person in charge of the premises to be inspected and to admit any official authorized to conduct such inspection. Such inspections may include, but are not limited to, fire department, code enforcement, or building codes. If the business establishment will be accessed by the public, an inspection by the Holiday Island Fire Department is required prior to the issuance of a business license. Violations of the Arkansas Fire Protection Code must be corrected prior to issuance of a license. Businesses that will be accessed by the public are required to be Americans with Disabilities Act compliant. Businesses existing at the time of passage of this ordinance will not require a fire inspection prior to issuance of a license. Section 1.07, penalty. Section A, cease and desist order. If a business or entity continues to operate after revocation of the license without a valid or current City of Holiday Island business license, the city shall issue a cease and desist order. B, fines operating without a license after the issuance of a cease and desist order shall be in violation punishable by a fine of not less than $500. Each day that a violation persists shall constitute a separate and distinct offense. Section 1.08, conflicts. This chapter shall not be construed to alter, change, or regulate in any unlawful way any business, trade, occupation, profession, or vocation regulated or governed by laws of the state of Arkansas when such laws are in conflict with the provisions herein. And then that's the end of the content of the ordinance, and then there's an Exhibit A, which is an application for a business license, and Exhibit B, which is the business certificate of occupancy, which is basically the inspection that the fire chief would do prior to the issuance of the license. I will now open it up for comments from the city council.
Read through that again.
The short answer to that is no.
No.
I sent you some things that, and you did some of them. Section 101, paragraph A, it just doesn't read right. With the physical address which operates with it, it should, if you put an and in there, then it makes sense.
Section A, which paragraph, Ken?
A1. Don't you need an and? Operates within?
No,
I don't think so. It's with an address which operates within the Holiday Island limits shall be required.
with the physical address which operates.
Maybe a comma would help.
No, it needs an and.
Where would you put the and? I don't see where you
With the
put-
physical address and operates within the holiday.
And instead of which, is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
I think that's,
Anyway, if you understand it, that's fine.
I agree with what it is, and
yeah,
And the only other issue is, the date, you corrected the fiscal year to a calendar year. However, I had somebody tell me that a lot of the licenses are issued based on a fiscal year of 1 July through 30 June. I don't know, I have no idea whether that's true or not. I don't know whether they.
I think it might be true because every ordinance I read that every other city had.
So you might
based
want to
theirs
consider
on
making it a truly a fiscal year, which
June.
coincides with our fiscal year, which is July through June. No, not, yeah, it is.
We don't have that.
fiscal year is January to December.
That's true.
Well, entities are, the district is on July. No, okay. Too many things that I do are based on a fiscal year, which is July.
I
through
think
June.
of
Rotary, church, all of them.
We would have no reason to make it July to June. It wouldn't coincide with anything else that we do, so.
Okay. I was thinking we were on a fiscal year, but we're not. And
I think that the intent of that comment from the public was so that it would coincide with the state licensing and the state paperwork that they have to file, and that your paperwork would coincide.
But I
It
don't
would be
know.
the latest paperwork.
That's the only items I had.
And every city does it basically mid-year, they don't do it January to January.
I'm surprised that, we, most, public entities are on fiscal year.
Well, if we change it, then we have to add a whole nother section in here about either we're gonna delay
Yeah.
enforcing the ordinance till July, or we're gonna have a whole paragraph in there about
You could prorate
prorating.
the first
Well,
thing.
you're not,
Just
you're
say
not,
it's prorated.
you just make, you could just charge it a year and make it effect, be renewable in July. I don't know.
You could do it, such that, if you just say it's, I think you even have a paragraph in here. If they come in mid-year, it's a prorated fee. It's already in there, isn't it?
I don't know.
Not in this.
It was in the
I
STR
just
one.
brought it out because I
Wouldn't
don't
it do
know.
the same thing for a business that, came in?
I'm sorry, it
mid-year?
is. It's in here.
They
It's
did
in
say
D
that.
three.
But that would require us to
In
prorate
102
every first
D3.
application.
It is prorated. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Just, I know why you had.
I don't care one way or another, I just don't have a compelling reason to do it in July. If we wanna make it, if we wanna make the renewing effective July 1st and just charge everybody half price for the first go-around, I don't know that it make anybody any difference.
I don't know. I don't think it's worth it.
A real minor point, and you can make no difference whatsoever, but just thinking under posting on page 6, due to the seriousness of the possibility of losing your business license, instead of first-class mail, would it be worth the extra couple of dollars to send it certified? Or is that even?
Where is that paragraph?
Paragraph B under posting, page 6.
Page 6.
Says officers shall mail a letter
Section 103.
by first class and copy it. I wonder if it'd just be worthwhile to send it certified or have a proof of mailing. Because that's a fairly serious If not, I don't have a big issue with it either way.
I'm okay with the way it's worded because we have at the end, the failure of the owner to receive the mailing or the phone calls shall not affect the validity of the process. So we're gonna make an attempt to contact them, first class mail and a phone call, and a second phone number if there's one available.
Yeah, and we're gonna try 2 phone numbers and a knock on the
Yes,
door.
that's okay.
And, any other comments?
Yeah, I got a few here. Under, this is 101 F, I believe. 105
Home
Home
occupation.
occupation?
Yeah, agree.
Okay,
Okay, yeah, it's section 101, under F, home occupations. It looks like they're not required to obtain a business license. However, you've got some home occupations that I think fall into this description that are running painting companies out of their homes and other kinds of businesses where they have trucks that are parked on around their house, and they're, doing, I mean, they might as well have a storefront, but they're doing it out of their home.
they are covered because they travel to their work. That's up above. They have to have a license if they travel to their work.
I thought it was if they only travel to their place of business.
Well,
No, yeah, show me where you're looking.
okay, in section 101,
Uh-huh,
paragraph 2,
uh-huh.
operates out of a physical address shall be required to file. I'm sorry. There's a travel in some place.
Well, there's the home-based business for a resident conducting a non-traffic generating occupation. And this is a non-traffic generating occupation.
Right.
Yeah. Except, they're generating the trucks that are going back and forth out of their neighborhood. So, I'm not sure.
I had a similar concern, but I think I found the solution, so I just don't find it again.
Okay.
It has to do with, yeah,
Are you maybe thinking of, requirements of fees, section 102D1?
102D1, home-based business, a resident, that's the one I was just citing. Resident conducting a non-traffic generating occupation. Well, I had a question on that paragraph too, also, because it's not clear to me whether they're just applying for the business registry or they're actually getting a license.
Well, it says there shall be no fee for registration of a home business. So we don't have that license.
Where does it say that?
Last sentence in D1.
There shall be no fee for registration of a home business. That sounds like they're not getting a license.
That's what I took that to mean.
Yeah. So this is the same situation as I'm talking about up under home occupations under F at the top of the page. Yeah. Where you've got a company that they're operating a commercial business out of their home, but not in a commercial location.
Well, if they have employees, they have to.
Well, they're not supposed to be occupying it out of their home if they do have employees, but if they have multiple trucks, wouldn't you think they had multiple employees? I don't know. But I think they ought to be licensed. I think they need to be licensed if they're coming to people's houses.
okay, so we can solve the problem in F. We say where customers and employees are not required.
Where are you gonna put it?
Which one is it?
In F, in the second line, where customers and employees are not required to travel, then they're not required to get a license.
Are you saying everybody lives in the house?
No, they're travel to conduct business purposes. If you've got a home occupation where you don't have to leave to go do your business, then you don't need a license. But if you have to leave your home to do your business, you need a license.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If they are leaving their home to do
Right.
the business, yes, that's right. That's exactly what I was saying, yeah.
So say where customers and employees are not required. Well,
No.
then we've got employees in home occupations where they have to have a license, so I don't want to do that. Sorry. No, I was trying to fix it.
Why don't we just have everybody get a license?
Now, what we were trying to avoid was people that make birdhouses and sell them at the fruit market, you know,
Or the accountant, or the sign maker.
I mean,
Well, that's true, the accountant would have a license, I'm sorry.
we're not ready for public
You're
comment
right.
yet.
You're right.
Hold that thought. I guess do we agree that commercial operation operating out of a house requires a license? Maybe we could just agree on that or not? But that's not what our wording says.
I don't think we agree on that, that's.
What's your
Well,
opinion about it?
In the example you gave of a painting business running out of a home, aren't they required to have a business license? A state tax, whatever, a registration with the
I
state?
don't know. I don't know if they charge sales tax or not. Maybe they're getting by without it. I don't know.
Well,
I imagine they are.
well,
No,
if
we
they're
say
doing it
they should
illegally.
have. We say either they have a tax license or should have.
But we'll never know unless we get out, make them do a license with us. We would never know. We don't know that today.
I know there's somebody sitting out there that has the answer, and they're just itching to get up and tell us what it is. Do we want to let them?
I think so.
All right, we're gonna let you, tell us what the
Gotta be enough
solution is.
scratch
You want
on
first?
I do want this first. Okay, so I'm Erin, 5 Woodsdale Drive. So under this ordinance, right now, a home-based business that doesn't have to have a license means my restaurant, I walk down the stairs where I live, and there I have a restaurant, so I don't have to have a business license. 2, home daycare. I can have a home daycare in my home, and I'm not required to do a business license because I'm not leaving my home to do that. So it is like what Linda's saying, all businesses out of a home who make profit should have to have business licenses, even the CPA and all that stuff. They're making revenue, which means the city is losing stuff. You can go on Secretary of State, do a business entity search, just a blanket one for Holiday Island, and see every business that has been, is, or not listed with the state of Arkansas as a business in Holiday Island, and that is where you need to go off of that from. It has all their information, register agent, business owners, presidents, all that stuff. And that goes for nonprofits, which are making money.
So are you saying that it's your opinion that if we made everyone on that list the Secretary of State chosen Holiday Island get a city license, we would be pretty okay?
Yes, but you do have some people who don't have anything registered, and that becomes a problem. And that's where the
So
city
they
has to
probably-
do their work and figure that part out.
I probably didn't want to go to the trouble or the.
Well, and the thing, it's not even a trouble to get a business license in the state of Arkansas. It's literally, you fill an application online, and within 5 minutes, you've got it. Everyone has it. That does it right.
Does it cost money?
$50, I think?
Yeah. So maybe they don't want to pay $50.
Well, then they shouldn't do business. But when you're talking about the home-based business, let's take a home daycare, right? I'm young, I can take 20 kids on. I used to do home daycare. But then you got the problem of, if you're saying no home-based business needs a city license, then I don't need fire inspection, I don't need state inspection, I don't need anything, which means I can unsafe.
But you got.
If you had a daycare, that wouldn't qualify under this definition.
How is
because
that? If I'm not leaving my
because
home,
The customers are coming to your.
Customers are the
The
ones.
customers are coming to your house.
they're dropping a kid off and walking out the door.
Right,
That's-
it's just open for anybody talking for, I think the answer here is, if you collect any money, you are then considered a business. It's the problem I have, I could choose to make a business that I make less money, I wouldn't have this, or I could choose to make a business where I make more money. So the second I take dollars, I pay taxes for it, I fill out an ET1 form for the state. As soon as that happens, I'm a business. Doesn't matter if I'm at home, doesn't matter if I have a storefront,
I don't know, that.
or any of
It's
those.
okay to me. I mean, it says if you don't have people coming to your house, buying something, or
service.
doing a service, and you have no employees, then you don't have to have one. I don't know any businesses.
The intent wasn't to exempt any legitimate for-profit business, whether it's a one person or, or. 20
But it
people.
should also include nonprofits.
Well-
Nonprofits are making profit.
Not technically, they're not supposed to.
I don't see anything wrong with it. It's up to me.
But what we didn't want is, again, considering the community, we have a lot of retired people here that have a hobby. And, they make trinkets, and they'll sell trinkets for spending money. Are we gonna make them get a business license?
Well, according to the IRS, they should have to have one because they're supposed to pay taxes.
IRS does require that now, that you report it to the IRS.
Anything you make
A
as
hobby.
profit
Hobby
is
profit.
considered a business.
It only happened in the last 2 years, though, I think.
I think there's another part that finds that, I think that some of that is there's some different licenses for that, not just a standard business license, there may be a peddler's permit, there may be other licenses in that business part that would cover those entities that do that. And they may be smaller than a full-blown business that has a storefront going.
I don't know any
There's some-
business you can have, though, that you don't have people
Well,
coming.
getting back to Dan's point, you've got a lot of hobbyists,
What about this?
people that paint and sell
They
paintings,
just send
stuff like
trucks out
that.
from there. What
But
about
still, according to the IRS, which goes over city and state, you are required to have a business license, a IRS number, and file taxes for any profit you make.
Home-based business.
Does not have any.
So if your
employees.
profit after your expenses, maybe $5, then they're not gonna make you pay any taxes of that. But you still legit legally, if you're gonna start business licenses, you have to do it by rules, which would be everybody.
In your opinion, what would you suggest a fee would be for someone who paints in the corner of their bedroom and sells a piece of art once a year?
I think that's
At a garage sale.
I think that's a different conversation that hadn't come up yet in this part, is that not every business is equal. I don't think we're gonna run into this here with, the places that are there is they all have different amounts of traffic. They all have different amounts of people, they make different volumes of stuff.
Right.
I don't think they're all equal.
And then-
It's the same comment about the timeshares versus single home. They have 28 versus a house being a single, but I could own 3 houses, and I'm gonna pay 3 times the rate, the same as a timeshare.
I can tell you one thing. We had a much larger section in here about home-based occupations at one time, and our city attorney advised us to take it out because it's unenforceable. And the day I called him to talk to him about it, he was on his way to Town to work with them about taking it out of their ordinance because it was unenforceable. Nobody is gonna go neighbor to neighbor and say, I just saw you sell a trinket to somebody, where's your business license, I'm gonna turn you into the IRS. It's just not enforceable, so he suggested we take it out, and we just skinnied it down to one little paragraph.
But when you see
But
somebody with for trucks with painting, house painting or interior, exterior painting on their
That's
on their
probably a
driveway,
violation of our,
you know he's got a business.
That's a zoning
that's
violation.
probably a zoning violation
But you know
to
he has a
start with.
business.
Yeah, but you know, he has a
Wes
business,
is chiming
which
in.
we have exempted by this.
Wes wants to chime in.
He's typing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he said, painters would be required to file a sales tax, nonprofits also make a profit. They are just tax exempt for some charitable or other purposes.
Can I get an example for the nonprofit before that comes up? Mayor, you have a liquor license for a private club. I could in turn make the restaurant down the street a private club just as well as that, and I would be exempt from this. I would not have to have a business license.
He's talking about the Elks.
Yeah.
I could be a private
Why
club.
would you be exempt? Because of the liquor license?
Because it's a nonprofit corporation, that's how it works, and it's all for a private club license. There's a way around that in the gray for that to be there, and it's really a business.
So every nonprofit is not a charitable.
That's
business.
Correct.
In other words.
It's not, they are 501s, they do exist.
So do we just change the title to 501, whatever it is that makes them a charitable organization rather than a
Elks
nonprofit?
is not a 501c3.
Excuse me?
It's a 501c3.
I don't think it is.
I don't see any problem with it. Unless it becomes a problem.
I know from our workshop, because of the discussion about the levels of enterprise that can happen, that I saw this paragraph F about not having a business license for home occupations, so that there was no burden on those small operations. That's why we put it in here, to remove the burden from them altogether.
My point is, if you have somebody who wants to do home daycare, or the painter, or anything like that, where you're running into an issue that they are making a lot of money and the city is not protecting itself. If you have a daycare system and there's a fire, guess who's gonna get in trouble? I can tell all my parents, hey, meet me at Sunfest, and I'm gonna load all your kids at Sunfest in my vehicle and take them to my home, because now I don't have to have a business license, I can keep my fees cheaper to you. And you can't say that customers come to my home, because they haven't.
Are you telling me in Arkansas there's no requirements about home daycare?
Arkansas has a ton of requirements
Okay,
for
so they have-
home-based businesses having city licenses and paying state fees.
Okay, but you're talking about a home-based business of daycare where you're not required to do licensing. That is strange to me.
No, I'm just using home daycare as an example, when you're saying
Okay.
that a home-based business isn't necessarily needing a city license, when they do, just like they have to have a state
Okay,
license.
if they have to have a license, this ordinance says they have to get a business license. It doesn't exempt them, even though they're doing that business at home.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I think you've convinced me that painting business is okay. They have to have a business license.
Right.
Because they have employees.
Right. And I don't think there's many businesses that can operate where you don't have customers coming to your house. So if you have customers coming to and from your house,
Well, and
it's a business that
it
requires a
sounds like
license.
the CPA situation, because they have to have
They
state
bring the
license.
papers to you, they need a license.
Yeah, they have to be state licensed.
Well, they also,
But what if it's sent to you digitally?
huh?
What if the information's sent?
They can't do it all digitally.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Sure
you
they
can't.
can.
Sure they
Yeah,
can.
they can.
Of course they
You
can.
gotta-
100% they can.
No, they don't do it though. They bring it in a little box, give it to you.
It's all digital now, Ken.
I don't think anybody wants to damage a small place doing birdhouses, right? But there are places to do accounting or anything else that has now gone digital, that they will make just as much as a bunch of brick and mortar places that are in there, and that
Yeah.
is business.
Yeah, I agree.
I think you covered it though, if they're coming to your house and you got employees,
But coming to your house doesn't make a difference.
yes it does.
It doesn't.
Now what does it say?
Here,
For
so
customers are not required to travel to and from
Right.
the residence.
But it shouldn't matter.
Well, okay, so I'm a realtor, my broker is online. I do not have customers coming to my house.
Okay, so
I
you're
meet them
exempt.
somewhere else, so I wouldn't have to have a business
Right.
license.
The same thing as if I'm a consultant and I work online.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to your realtor question, you have to have a state
Yeah,
license.
that's what I just, yeah, she just said that, you have to have a state license.
But she,
But the CPA at home has to have state license.
CPA,
Right.
right?
There's a handyman,
and,
But
I work
handyman.
I
The
work.
contractors should, they have a state contractor's
Right,
license.
they gotta have the.
Like,
state
is
license.
it, painter?
Anyway.
I have a state license for my business, and I work from my home, no one comes to my house.
So that's what ours says.
Like, everything I do is digital, everything I do is digital now.
so you're covered under this ordinance to require a business license.
I have a question about, the sentence right above home occupations where we've been spending this time. It says, "The landlord that operates a short-term residential shall not be exempt and must apply for and obtain business license for each individual short-term rental." That's contrary to what we just did for Table Rock Landing.
Say it again, where are you?
In the sentence in E, the last sentence, "The landlord that operates a short-term residential rental shall not be exempt and must apply for and obtain a business license for each individual short-term rental." That's contrary to what we did in the last ordinance.
Add the timeshare exception in there.
Yeah, we exempted timeshare from that provision.
We did that in the other ordinance.
But
It was
That
about-
was
That
the permit.
That was the cut.
Okay,
You can
that
put
was
it
the
in
cover,
here, too.
yeah, okay. I'm getting it.
Okay, if you think we're covered,
Is that for?
Yeah,
I mean,
we-
that's a
we get
business
this thing
time
as a
share.
general
Yeah.
debate.
but, okay,
I don't see anything wrong with that paragraph.
okay, that's fine.
That's what we want to clarify. Yeah.
That was just a
See
question.
if it causes, if it doesn't cause a problem, then that's what we're trying to do that.
Okay, I'm dropping down in 102 in the paragraph or section D, requirements and fees.
Yep.
The first sentence says, "A resident conducting a non-traffic generating occupation, profession, or business within the residence dwelling unit." I have a suggestion to insert, "or accessory structure on the same property as the principal residence." Because I might have a detached garage where I do all my business. So I need to include the I need to include the accessory structure.
And that would still comply with the zoning.
What
Yes.
section were you in?
Right here.
D1.
So right here, at this point, I would insert accessory structure on same property as the principal residence.
Now, this is the paragraph, I had a question of your intent by saying in that next line, "shall submit an application for business registry and license." Does that mean they're gonna get a license?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Right, yeah, we can.
Okay.
But there's no fee.
No, it says no fee for registration.
The last sentence says there's no fee. How do you do
For a
that?
home business.
Well, I'm saying, I said,
Okay.
the
Oh, I see
home-based
what you're saying.
business
I see what you're
shall
saying.
submit an application for business registry
Okay.
and license.
Yeah,
But
you
no
get,
fee.
you get registered, but you don't have to pay for it.
Why?
You get on the list, so we
No,
know.
it says license, it says the word license.
That's the form is an application for business registry and license. That's the application form. That's what it's called.
Well, it becomes confusing to understand whether you have to get a license or just a
Right.
registry. I'm just telling you.
That confused me.
Okay. I would fix it.
We can just, well, I mean, we can scratch the and license part.
I know that it was technically.
Yeah, because you use business registry by itself in other places. If you just meant business registry, I would just scratch the license part. That would be much clearer. Yeah.
We really haven't solved the home occupation question yet.
Mm.
And I'm gonna suggest, and we can talk about other things in here, but I'm going to suggest that we table this ordinance for tonight and give me a chance to contact our city attorney and find out what they did in Town to resolve this issue, because it's the exact same issue.
Okay.
And maybe we can come up with some suitable wording and,
We
So
might
we
like,
can-
might, should look at some other cities too, don't you think?
He does that already. You're gonna go to him.
I would just, I mean, yes, you can, but
So right now, we're gonna table home-based business tax, but consider some more amendments? Okay.
Can we still have public comment on that deal before we go any further?
what?
Even if you're gonna table it, can we still have public comment for that?
Yeah.
Do I need to stand up for this?
Let's, sure.
Honestly, listen, the ordinance right now that's in there has changed a lot in the last few days. It's changed a lot. And it's going in the right direction. There's still a lot done, but I will tell you, the board has done a whole lot better. They have worked more as a workshop at this point right now than they did in the workshop before. And if they came back and tabled this and went to a workshop to actually come with more, there's still a lot that hasn't been talked about yet, that even if we brought this back now and solved that problem, people are still gonna get up here and talk to have more issues for the rest of it. It honestly needs to go back to a workshop and be revisited again with the public and the businesses before it goes back again to vote. Or we're gonna be back at the same place. And there's still a lot of pages and parts that haven't been covered in this current one. And if we're tabling it now, this is the process that should happen in a workshop where the board sits there and talks about those and fixes those problems. The last workshop was unproductive. I was here. It was one of the worst productive workshops I've seen. If they had gone through the same process you're doing right now, talking about those things, this part would already be fixed and there would be something to vote on. Something needs to be done for a workshop to happen on that.
And in my defense of that workshop, we didn't have this text to this level to discuss it specifically. From that workshop, this text came out of that, so it was productive.
There was some, but it wasn't down to the degree that we're talking about right now.
Exactly.
And so that makes it to where obviously another workshop needs to happen to make that productive part and not rush through just to pass something, but to make sure it is all correct.
Well, let's go through the rest of it and see if we all agree that there's more than just one home occupation issue to be resolved.
Okay, I have a comment that in 102, we're following the next page, section E, or for a display of business licenses. It's called display of business license. The concern I have there is, what about the business that operates out of their truck or van, like a roofer, a gutter maker, a siding guy, a painting guy? He doesn't have a place to walk into. Where is he gonna display his business license?
On his visor, yeah.
On his truck.
Well, it doesn't say that. That's my point. Other than the business license shall be displayed where the customer's entering the establishment?
Or in the step.
Right. Maybe that's the sentence to fix.
If you put it in the truck, you wouldn't see it anyway, because you couldn't get in it.
Well, we could find an ordinance in another city that says how to write that.
I would hope so.
I doubt it, because
Yeah.
I looked at plenty of them before we came up with this.
I think so.
Because my concern is, when the roofer and gutter guy comes to fix the neighborhood because of the storm, how can the homeowner know the guy has a license?
Well, if that's the case, then how come we're trying to have them display it, no other city does?
Well, In the defense of the doctor's office I go to, it's displayed prominently on the counter right next to where you walk up through, saying, I'm here,
That may be a state requirement.
okay? But it's a city business license.
And I would fully agree that I think they ought to be displaying their business license, but I'm just saying, if we can't find it in another city's ordinance, why would we put it in ours?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there was, if there was a way to word it, fine.
Yeah, so
I think
there you
maybe
go.
we can work out in the workshop. How did we get it if Tommytown doesn't have it worded so much?
I don't know if this was, I didn't work on the draft of this,
I
but
don't
it
know
came
where
from
this came from, so.
a couple of sources.
This came from a combination of Fayetteville and Town. I don't remember ever reading anything in any other ordinance about what do you do about Joe the painter.
Yeah.
They usually have their license number, well, that's state license probably.
I'll come up with some kind of wording for that.
Okay. I don't have any other edits.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I do, on C, this would be section 101C, where it says nonprofit entities. I think that could be worded a lot more straightforward, instead of starting it with no organizations, just say, organizations operating in good standing with the IRS and the state of Arkansas as nonprofit entities shall be required to file an application for a city business registry. Period.
Now, which section are you in?
I was in section 101C,
101C.
Striking
page
no
3.
and taking the butt out.
Shall not be required.
Just say, organizations operating in good standing shall be required to file an application for the city business registry.
Take the no and the butt out and you've got it, right?
Well, you take all of the obtain a city business license, but shall, and take the no out, yeah. See where I scratched it out from here over?
Okay.
I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's very hard to understand the way it's written.
It says,
So it says no organization operating as a nonprofit is required to obtain a business license.
it's saying
What's
you
hard
don't
to
have
understand
to.
about that?
So if you take the no out, you gotta say
Well, I
organizations
reduced
do
the
shall
number
not
of
be
words you have
required.
to read by considerable amount.
No,
I don't see one, I don't see that.
you're making them get a license, but we're saying they don't have.
What I
that.
Well,
changed, so
basically,
you can
no,
see the
basically
sense.
what you're saying is that for nonprofits, all you're saying is they just have to be.
You stated the
registered.
positive, not the negative.
Yeah,
Organizations operating.
How's it positive?
The IRS
Take the no out in front of it.
Wasn't that something that?
But that's not what I wanted, that's not what we're saying.
Yeah, but if you take,
We're
if you
not
take the
required
no out,
to
it says they gotta get a license.
To get a required, to get a license.
Linda,
No.
striking that language changes
No.
it.
You take-
Right, yeah, the way you wrote it says that they do need a business license.
Doesn't mean
no.
Yeah, you just made them
It
get a
says
license.
shall be required
To
to
file.
file an application for the registry. That's all you want them to do.
Oh, you didn't scratch out everything.
Show it to me.
You can't dispute it.
Yeah, he's saying, none of these organizations will be required to obtain a license.
You've said it in a
shall be
much simpler
required.
way.
If you just say shall not be required to get a license, then you got it, if you wanna take the other no out. You turned it into a positive statement and said they gotta get a license.
Okay,
No,
I mean, I can go with that.
I didn't say license, I said just the registry.
No.
I took, you're not seeing
She
what I
crossed
took
out.
out.
Yeah.
See,
It's just,
organization operating good standing, nonprofit, shall be required
Well, I didn't know you
to
took all that up.
All right,
file an application.
I got it.
with the Business registry.
Next.
Simple, okay.
Next. I get,
Well, there's not, in that minors exempt paragraph, it said minors are prohibited from leasing, advertising, managing, or any other activity. Unless they're an emancipated minor. What are the other activities?
Maybe just insert the word business.
Or any business activity?
it means
I
that,
don't know, I don't know what you're trying to.
I don't know, I pulled that directly, word for word, and it's probably got something to do with the fact that a couple of years ago, or a year or so ago, the state of Arkansas tried to pass a law that would have made it illegal for kids to have a lemonade stand.
Yeah, I remember.
And that got a lot of press. So I think this basically says they can have a lemonade stand, but they can't have a McDonald's. Unless they're an emancipated minor.
Well, just, to
Whatever
me, it
that
makes it
means.
sound like they can't do anything. I won't argue about it. Not that
It may be that it's illegal for a minor to be licensed in the state of Arkansas, other than a driver's license maybe, or a hunting license. I don't know. Like I said, I pulled that word for word from at least one other city ordinance. And it sounded like a good idea to me. We wouldn't issue a business license to a 14-year-old.
So I like the first part of it.
Anything else? Any other public comments?
Are we continuing public comments for everything?
Sure.
Up there?
Yes.
You may have to give me a minute to catch up here and find all the stuff, but we'll get to it. One of the things that hadn't been covered at all is the amount for places that's going on, the business license amount. Every business has different sizes, they're different parts. There's nothing here that would be productive for me to pay into currently right now. The city's not going to be able to do anything for me for $35. There are different plans that are out there for different parts. The city does need revenue. It's not a part that you collect revenue and save it and don't do anything with it. There's always a goal to use for it, but it has to be collected somewhere. And those businesses, we're gonna have a Dollar General here that has a $35 license. They make $25 billion a year. I have a license. I'm gonna pay $35. I'll tell you honestly, in all the cities I have businesses, I've never paid $35 for a license, ever. I've never paid less than 100. I've actually never paid less than 200. I've never paid less than 300 for a business license, the businesses that I have. I have a liquor license, over $1,000 a year. $35 is not enough for anything to happen. I'm not excited about paying $35, not because it's a lot of money, because I know nothing is going to come from it. I'm filling out paperwork, asking for more people to come in, do more fire codes, make sure there's things going on, and I'm gonna pay $35 for that all to happen. Those things already happen right now. I already get checked for the fire codes. What did I get out of that? Why do I have more paperwork? The question to your date, it is July 1. All permits are due on July 1. Every one of them. In every state that I operate in. I don't want to come up here in the middle of the winter to fill out for one permit, one license, when the rest of my license all get done July 1. liquor license are due July 1. They also don't have words in here that say we have to come in here and renew that 2 months before it comes up. The renewal time is as good as your license is good for. The license is good for a year. I could wait till the last day of that license and come get a new one. I still have a good license. There's no time frame on any other license that I've ever had that makes me come in 2 months before it's due. It's due when it expires. I need a new one the next day that expires. In fact, you cannot put up a liquor license until the actual date. I may get it early, but I cannot put it up on the wall until that date comes. It is not active, it doesn't go forward. So why would I be here 2 months before? September, I would be up here doing a business license for $35 of my time that is not worth anything to do it. It's just another step that I may miss at some point, and then I've got to come do it. It causes me more problems than it does nothing good. Every business, though, is a different size. Those different industries and the different businesses can afford to easily pay licenses that are bigger than $35. The city is never going to get anything that it wants by not generating revenue. A police department can't be made without revenue. More streets can't be done. City parks can't be done. None of that can be done without revenue. Somewhere it's going to have to be taken from. Business licenses, that's not the only thing that is not in this. There are no franchise fees in this. That is their business license to do business here. Yes, do they pass it on every once in a while? They do. But if I have to have a business license, I expect the same out of the people that are doing business here. A&P, we're going to put in a business license right now for me to pay $35 to eventually someday the city may pay an A&P tax, which we should already have in the plans to go to make that commission happen, because it would only improve the businesses that are here. And it comes from people out of state. People that visit here would pay that tax, not the local people that would pay it. And if we do a business license now and I pay the $35 and say in 3 or 4 months, 5 months, we have an A&P commission, guess what? I have to come back up here again to get an A&P permit. I have to get a number to pay the city tax for that permit. I'm back again. The city really needs to stop and pass everything at one time as a whole that is reasonable. There's nothing to be gained out of currently doing the paperwork. None. There may be some safety parts in there, but I can't expect the city to do anything for me or any of these other businesses that are here. You've pointed nothing in the direction that there's anything for us to gain by doing it. Zero. That needs to be figured out. I said earlier that y'all have done better in this part of figuring out what to put in here. Y'all worked more on working on this other than the workshops. I think it should go back to workshop and add those parts and add the part of A&P. That's a part of businesses. And if we have to do permits now and then notify everybody to come back and do an A&P permit and put those in place, nobody wants to run around all the time and do it. Let's figure out what that is and actually pass that part to happen. Nobody's saying we don't need business license. We do. We're in a city. There's no city that I operate in that I don't have to have a business license. There's no city that I've operated in where I don't have an A&P tax. Every city around us has A&P tax. Every one of them. Most of them have business licenses. There are very few towns that don't have business license. There are a few that don't have it. But there are a lot that do. There are a lot that put these licenses in place. They do generate revenue. Cities have to have revenue to operate. Not everything is a handout. Not everything that comes back from the state. They have to add additional revenue to it. Franchise fees, part of business. A&P helps out the people that work here that have businesses that need more people to come to generate more revenue. And eventually someday the city may have enough revenue in businesses they could do a city tax. I don't think it would be beneficial to them right now, but someday they might if they put everything in the right direction. But tell businesses they need to do all this for $35. It's going to cost them $35 worth of time for them to come do it. It's going to take them time to fill out that piece of paper. At least make it worth it to take the amount of money and tell them what you're going to do for them. than just take the $35 and make them spend hours filling out stuff. Airbnbs, for instance, are gonna have to do a cup. They're gonna have to come back and pay a business license. This more to start an Airbnb here than it is to start a restaurant as far as the city goes. It's disproportionate. It shouldn't be that way. There just has not been enough time done on this ordinance to make the ordinance right. It needs to go back. I'm not saying that what's in here right now is all bad. A lot of it can be taken. It's improved in the last 4 days. But it has to be better than what it is right now. We don't gain anything from its current state right now. Oh, that's the way I take it.
I appreciate your comments, but you have to understand that we're all volunteers here. The cities you're talking about that have all these big plans and these ordinances and these fees and everything else, they also have a lot of paid staff that have plenty of time to work on all of that.
Can I reply to that real quick, Mayor? The city has to have revenue before they can pay that staff. Means if the mayor.
I'm not putting in 30 hours a week right now.
I agree.
And I'm not gonna put in 60 hours a week just because we can't take one step without taking 3 at the same time. An A&P tax we don't know anything about it. First thing we have to do is read all the laws.
Right.
And then secondly, we have to put together an A&P commission. I don't know how to do that. I've never been a mayor before. I've never been on an A&P commission. I gotta figure out how to do that. Then we gotta have probably public hearings on that. And then we have to decide what the ordinance is gonna look like. And you're saying that's not good enough yet either. On top of that, we have to have other things that, in order to make this a complete package. So we can't take any steps until we have that complete package, and I disagree.
If not, if I'm a business and I'm coming back multiple times to do the same thing that should have been already done.
At least you're getting paid as a business owner.
And I wish the city would get paid for having businesses inside the city.
Maybe someday they will, but right
You also
now,
have people in the town who are willing to help and give advice and guidance in what they know for the people who are on the city board who don't have any idea or have never been in these positions. And sometimes it feels like the city board is fighting against those words of advice.
I don't know. How many workshops do we need to have? You tell me, how many workshops do we need to have?
I'll tell you, because it is volunteer, and I understand, and everybody appreciates that time. But to sit here and say that we need to rush through because we don't need to spend more time on it is the wrong part to have. I understand you volunteered.
We've been working on this probably for 6 months now.
I understand, and if it takes another 6 months, it's the right thing to do to make sure that it's right. There's no rush in doing so. I understand everybody does free work for this, and I get that. And everybody appreciates that part. But when it comes to the point of saying, we don't need to spend more time on this, we need to push through for this, is not necessarily the right answer either. Yes, you're elected, you're there to do that, but you're also there to do the job, no matter how long that takes. If this takes another 6 months to get in place and be right, I would much rather 6 months come by before pushing this through and making it wrong.
Now, at this point, of course, you're the only ones that come to the meeting, but I've had no other input. I've had no other input that says this is the wrong thing to do.
So I know you guys
we would be making the decision to table this indefinitely based on your say-so. And your say-so alone.
No, I don't believe so.
But you guys reference Tonytown a lot. I would suggest reach out to Berryville or any other bigger city than Tonytown and ask them like, hey, this is what we've got. Can somebody read this and kind of give us advice on where we need to go with this? Since we don't know, we're all learning, this is a new process.
We've done all that. We start out, we don't write anything from scratch. We start out by talking to Berryville, Green Forest, Eureka Springs, Tawnytown. Our city attorney is also the attorney for Tawnytown.
People's opinions and have them talk, because yes, I have been the only person to come into a lot of these meetings. Am I the only one that's come with that? No, I've spent a lot of time talking with the other businesses here. Will they come down here? They probably won't. Some of them won't, because they have a problem like that. They have a problem that they would have an issue if they did do it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are times when people can speak up for other people in these meetings and talk for them. I don't have to sit here and list who they are. I don't have to have that, but just because I'm saying what that is, doesn't mean that it's only coming from me. It can be coming from multiple people for that.
I'm curious, are you a member of the Chamber of Commerce?
I am.
Do they support more invoices from the city? Do they want to pay more fees? Because you're advocating over $300 for a fee. What's the chamber think about that?
Well, I pay $100 to be a part of the chamber every single year.
So does the city.
Yeah.
And the chamber's job is to support all the businesses.
Well, the chambers that I was involved with in my prior work, they did everything to keep the competitors out of town. That's all, the only reason they existed.
What would the competitors here though?
Well, I don't know, another restaurateur.
We need.
I don't know, I'm just saying where I came from, that's my experience with
We need
chambers.
more businesses.
There
That's
are,
the only way all
there
that
are
exists.
definitely, all of these things will go bad. There are a lot of cities where different parts of this go bad. I come from cities where we don't fight to put things in place. We fight to take things away because it is well overregulated. It has too many things in it. They're contradicting each other. But there's a big difference in that, in what's here right now. And,
All right, well, we're gonna move on.
Can I throw in my 2 cents?
Yeah.
Okay. I see no problem with putting this in a piece at a time. I really don't. I mean, if we pass the STR, the CUP thing, I mean, do we have to have business licenses ready right when that's ready to go? I mean, do we? I don't know. Lynn, do we? I mean, can you give them a CUP and say,
Oh, yes.
later you'll have a business license,
Yeah.
once we pass that, that will be
Yeah.
part of the thing you have to do? Okay, so that's step 2. And then we can discuss franchises, we can discuss A&P taxes. I wanna add all those things personally. So, and as far as, like, what, we need to, if we do the business license, we do need to talk about the amount of the fee. I think it is way too low the way you got it. I think it needs to be more in line with what other cities charge. And the reasoning I have for that is because I think, we could use that money to pay for a police force instead of the deputies.
There's not nearly enough businesses in Holiday Island.
There'd be
to
more
generate
than you
that.
think, but it would be something. I mean, right now, we have no plan of how to pay for actual police instead of deputies. We have no way, I don't know of any money unless we pass a property tax or something. Maybe it's a part of that. Also, I mean, look, the fire chief may have to do more inspections with the business licensing ordinance, the way it's kind of written now. And we're gonna be paying, I mean, we scaled back how much we're paying for the fire department right now, in fact. And maybe they need a little bit more money too that we should contribute to them. I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong with raising those rates a little bit over $35. And a 25 renewal.
You're not gonna generate enough revenue to do anything.
I mean, it won't even pay for Chris.
Yeah, it's a start. Yeah, it's a
Well,
start.
It's a start.
The primary reason for the low fee was because early on in our public input about a business license, the discussion was, we don't want to discourage people from coming to Holiday Island to open a business by having unreasonably high fees.
If they go any other city, they're gonna be paying way more.
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, if you
And-
look
and
at
Little
the,
Rock-
all you have to do is go to look at anybody's ordinance, it's way more than $35 anywhere.
Berryville doesn't have business licenses at all,
They have franchise fees.
but I don't know that we are entitled to franchise fees.
Of course
Because franchise fees, and I am not a lawyer, I'll restate that I don't know, and none of us knows. So don't assume
What makes
that
you
we're
think we
entitled
are?
to franchise fees.
We don't
Because
know.
franchise fees for like Carroll Electric
Uh-huh.
are based on their use of the road right away. Who owns the roads? I said.
So you're doing.
How can we franchise a road right away, the use of a road right away that we don't own?
Well, that's a sticky wicket, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of unknowns.
There are some.
There's a lot of unknowns.
Right, so research to be
And,
done. Okay.
you know, if we're not gonna do anything until we have a whole package, we're talking months, maybe years, before we do anything.
I'm advocating taking it step by step, actually, because I don't think we
The
can
other
do it all.
problem with franchise fees is just passed on to the users, so. You might as well levy a tax.
Depends on how those state laws are written. Can we take a break before we go further, if you're gonna?
No.
Table this?
Yes.
If we're done with this.
What time is it?
Can I ask, sorry, I just have a quick little question. So, if I have a company, if I have a name, like A's Rentals or whatever, then do I have to get a business license for each, like, of my Airbnbs?
You just gotta register.
Or is it just?
The way it's written right now, but I have a question by it. If you have 5 houses in Holiday Island that are your business, you would have to have a business license for each one.
Anything over 5? Not less than 5?
Do what?
The only,
Oh, so less than 3?
More than 2.
Is 1, and over
That's
3
if
is
you're a
each.
long-term rental.
yeah, well, 3 or more.
Is each.
It's every STR, isn't it?
Mhm.
It's regardless of the number.
So the timeshares only have to do one?
Well,
One.
And that's what I have.
that was my
question.
question. Exactly.
Like each of these owners already agreed to do the CUP, and then we're gonna add the business license on top of them. I mean, I can see us as a management company with our properties, having, getting the business license, but each of our owners are already gonna pay the CUP, and if we're managing their business and we're basically we're saying, we're the business actually managing those properties. I could see us having to have one, but each of those owners have to have one also?
Sounds like, I think we said that.
I think that's what it said.
Whoever collects and pays the taxes on it,
That would be us.
you collect the sales tax and pay the sales tax.
Yep.
So
It's
the
all
agent-
run through the management company. The owners have have nothing to do with the sales tax. It all goes through the booking site and collected and distributed monthly to the state.
And one more question, so it had like, once you filled this out, and then you had to have the inspection,
Not for P&D.
not for Airbnbs?
For every business license, with the exception of the first time around, because we're grandfathering that in here. But there's an inspection form, and we haven't done any residential or anything, but the fire chief told me that he's already been doing an inspection and, of businesses in Holiday Island, so, most businesses, this shouldn't be new to them.
So Airbnbs are exempt from that?
not long-term. If somebody, after we pass some ordinance, some version of this, if somebody comes and applies for a brand new one, then they would have to have this inspection done.
Okay, cause I thought that would be a lot of work to go and check. Okay, that's all.
All right, we wanna take a break, 5 minutes. I don't wanna be here yet at 10 o'clock.
Well, you're gonna have to move.
Linda.
Whatever works.
It's an important, part of the process.
Is that different than what Rotary is? What they were saying? It's either-
Rotary has a 501(c)(3).
Well, I knew that, but I'm saying Rotary would do it.
At this point, I would entertain a motion to table this ordinance until such time as we clarify home occupations and the Table Rock landing issue relative to number of licenses. Do I have a motion
I'll
to
move
table?
that we do what you said.
And I'll second it.
Linda made a motion to table the ordinance to resolve a couple of issues, and Pat seconded it?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. As soon as I come up with something on that, I'll let you know. Moving on in the agenda. Ordinance 2023-001.
2021.
I'll entertain a motion to pass ordinance 2023-021, an ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance 2021-008 in its entirety and authorizing amended regulations for the on-premises sale and consumption of liquor by the drink in the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas. Do I have a motion to pass?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-021.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Lynn seconded it. Linda, this is yours. You want to read it?
Well, it was sort of Jerry's, but I volunteered to make the ordinance up for him, so. You want me to read it? Okay.
Yeah, read it.
Ordinance number 2021-008, an ordinance to permit the on-premises sale and consumption of liquor by the drink in the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas. Whereas there are restaurants and establishments within.
28.
It's an ordinance.
That's
to-
yours.
Peter's title, yeah.
Oh, I read the wrong ordinance number. He's right.
Yeah.
I guess I gotta find the copy that has
Here.
the right stuff on it.
Here, Linda.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. Okay. Or it's actually ordinance number 2023-021.
Right, you're replacing
Thank
the
you.
whole week.
Thank you, good catch. An ordinance to repeal and replace ordinance 2021-008 in its entirety and authorizing amended regulations for the on-premises sale and consumption of liquor by the drink in the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas. Whereas there are restaurants and establishments within the city of Holiday Island which are in need of an ordinance permitting the sale of liquor by the drink in order to obtain the required alcohol beverage control ABC permit to sell liquor by the drink, and whereas the ability of those establishments to obtain a permit to sell liquor by the drink will be financially beneficial and will help them be more competitive with similar businesses in other cities in the region, and whereas Arkansas Code annotated 39203 D1 provides that cities of the first and second class may authorize by city ordinance the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premises consumption under this subchapter if the city is located in a county that has authorized the sale of intoxicating liquor. And whereas Carroll County has approved such sales in the county, and Holiday Island became a city of the second class on March 23rd, 2021. And whereas in order to provide a safe environment for the sale and provision of alcohol, as well as to comply with applicable state law and to promote the orderly operation of business, the city council adopts the following regulations. And whereas the city of Holiday Island now finds it in the best interest of the citizens of Holiday Island to amend the regulations adopted by ordinance 2021-008 and replace it in its entirety with this ordinance. Now be it ordained by the city council of the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas, that section 1, the sale of liquor by the drink at restaurants which meet the definition of a restaurant is found in Title 4, Subtitle B, Section 4.6 of ABC regulations, and said establishments have obtained the required ABC permit allowing for the sale and consumption of liquor by the drink on premises is hereby authorized within the city limits of the city of Holiday Island, Arkansas. The definitions of the terms of this ordinance shall be consistent with those found in Arkansas Code annotated 3-1-101 et seq. Of the most recent Arkansas Code. Section 2, and this is the section that changed. All such sales shall be permitted 7 days a week between the hours of 7 a.m. and midnight, unless more restrictive hours are specified in Arkansas Code annotated 3-1-101 et seq. Of the most recent Arkansas Code. And Section 3. The city of Holiday Island recognizes that the sale and consumption of alcohol by the drink is thoroughly regulated by the state of Arkansas, and nothing in this ordinance shall contradict the laws of Arkansas and the most current state code and or the regulations of the ABC. Passed and approved by the City Council of Holiday Island, Arkansas on this date of, what is it?
9/19.
September 19th, 2023. Approved by Dan Keys, mayor, and attested by Wesley Stilley, recorder treasurer.
All right, as Linda pointed out, the point of revising this ordinance is the fact that we had the sale limited to, I think,
11 a.m.
11 in the morning till
Midnight.
midnight. And so if the restaurants wanted to have mimosas with breakfast or something, they couldn't do that. So we changed it. Is there any discussion on this ordinance? Any discussion from the public? Did you bring some mimosas?
I'll see you Saturday morning.
7 a.m. is a little early for me, but that's okay.
All right, hearing no comments, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gillis,
No.
Councilmember Elwood,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Coon, aye. Councilmember Mills,
Aye.
That's, we have,
we have
four,
yes,
four yes, so the motion passes. However, there's no emergency clause on this ordinance. So we will need 2 more readings. Or we can bring it up in the next meeting and then suspend the second reading and pass it on the third reading. Okay. Now, resolution 2023-008. I have a motion to approve resolution 2023-008.
I'll move to approve resolution number 2023-008.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Then I'll second it. All right, a resolution, I'll now read the resolution. Resolution number 2023-008, a resolution authorizing a money market account for the City of Holiday Island Street Fund. Whereas from time to time, the street fund will have a balance in excess of anticipated short-term needs, and whereas it is in the best interest of the City of Holiday Island to earn interest on excess funds, and whereas money market accounts are interest-bearing without restricting access to the funds if needed, now be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Holiday Island that the City of Holiday Island Treasurer Recorder be authorized to establish a money market account for street fund revenues in excess of what is anticipated to be needed for budgeted expenditures. A money market account is to remain part of the street fund, and interest from the money market account is to be deposited in the street fund. The authorized signers for this account are to be the same as for the street fund. The recorder treasurer is authorized to transfer funds into and out of the money market account as required to meet street fund requirements. Passed and approved by the City Council of Holiday Island, Arkansas on this date of 9/19/23. Is there any comments on the resolution?
So this is, yeah, no problem.
Okay, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Councilmember Dumas,
Aye.
Councilmember Elwood,
Aye.
Councilmember Graves,
Aye.
Councilmember Coon, aye, Councilmember Mills.
Aye.
Resolution passes. It was brought up by a council member that we need to look at doing the same thing with the general fund, that if we have what we consider to be surplus funds in the general fund, that we do the same thing. Money market is a good,
I thought we already did one for the.
No,
we have a reserve, and that reserve is primarily put into CDs,
Right.
which aren't as liquid as the money market is. Money market, I think Wes found, is earning about 2 or 2.5% interest right now. So,
Yeah, I thought we were gonna go into CDs again, not into, I don't know where we're.
we need for it to be a little bit more liquid.
On that.
All right, moving on. Status of the move to the new location. I didn't have these ahead of time. This is where I think we're gonna stand on the spending of the project. There's a couple extra if you want to see them. We're getting close to moving. Linda supervised the cabling being done for all the computers and electronic gizmos today. Did you confirm that the Pinnacle can be here on the 28th? Okay. So on the big move day is the 28th of this month. Jose Perez and all his helpers are going to actually physically move all our furniture and everything. Pinnacle is going to move all of the electronic gizmos. So by the Monday morning after the 20th, whatever day that is, we should be open for business in our new office. It looks to me like we're going to come in, you know, the resolution that the city council passed approved a budget of $30,000. I brought up in a prior meeting that we were going to need some extra funds, primarily to cover the cost of additional new flooring that we had to put in. So it looks like we're going to come in at about $5,300 or $5,400 over budget. We have plenty of money in the bank to cover that. $4,900 of that was for the additional flooring. So the electronic stuff, cost a little more than I had anticipated with the Ingenious Cloud Access Point Pro, which I didn't know we were going to need. So I don't know, I'll leave it up to the council if they want to amend the resolution or just say that this is okay, and we'll adjust the budget at the end of the year accordingly.
I think we just adjust the budget then. The reason why we have to redo our resolution.
Okay, for the record, Ken says that we don't need another resolution. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're good. Is there any other new or any other business to attend to?
Have you been in contact with the state highway department to see whether we are?
They don't meet until December to, I've talked to them. We don't have to submit anything new. They have our.
They already have ours.
Our request, and, they meet in December to pick and choose the winners, so.
So this is the grant you're talking about, the next grant we might get?
Right.
Is there any benefit in mentioning that the county road that connects our city limits to 187 needs repaired, that the county might need some assistance? Help make that project a little bit bigger for them? Because ours will end a third of the way there, and then we're gonna have that rest of that road past the rest of the places.
You wanna talk to?
I don't know who to talk to.
David Wright.
David Ryder,
Okay.
the county judge.
Right, Ritter.
I wouldn't talk to him until we know that we've been awarded the grant. Cause it would be a new point.
So it might add a lever
Yeah.
of need.
Anything else? Any other public comments? Council member comments? Scheduling. I may schedule a special meeting to go over this, business license ordinance
I think so.
again. I'm gonna be gone from the 1st to the 15th of October. And when I say I'm gonna be gone, I may be off the grid gone. I'm gonna be out in Utah, walking around in the national parks. And there probably won't even be cell phone service. I'm hoping.
That's a good trip.
I got bad news for you. We had cell phone service everywhere we went. Canyonlands included.
You don't have Verizon.
Oh, yes, we do.
And my charger cord isn't that long.
Ah, there you go.
I tell you what, you would enjoy that.
So does our meeting take place during that time?
No, it's
No,
Seventeenth.
I'll be back by the next meeting. And, I am going to be trying to work on the budget for next year. I don't know if I'll have something ready to have people look at before the 1st of October, but I will be working on it, so it is coming up on budget time. Any other comments? Other than possibly scheduling a special meeting, a regular meeting is when?
October 17th.
10/17.
Wes wants to tell me something.
I already responded to him.
You're on the speaker, Wes.
I responded to him,
No.
told him there wasn't one.
No, we'll have to do a second reading at the next meeting. We can do the second and third meeting. We can do the second and third reading at the next meetings. All right,
You can bring that in, you can do that in a special meeting.
okay,
That's true, yeah.
what's the date of the next
10/17 is the regular.
regular meeting? And we will announce a special meeting if we have it. Any announcements? Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Any discussion? You sure? No discussion?
Let's say aye.
We're adjourned.
Battery louder and
If it doesn't, they need to come out.
It's too long.